The Helios Empire was enveloped in a haze, from which merciless undead attacked, destroying everything in their path. People did not know where to hide from the crowd of dead people. They crawled into every corner and found them. And against the powerful warriors of the Empire came the Demon Kings and the Death Knight, who were no less powerful. Our hero, the Death Knight, took on the Empire's most powerful swordsman, Eos. They fought on equal terms, but Eos felt like his legs were barely holding him up. However, he was able to reach the Death Knight's head and split the headgear. After this, our hero grabbed his head, and the world around him began to swim and sway. All this time, he was under the all-pervasive control of the Archlich. But now his mind has cleared up, and with it his anger at the one who took away everything that was most important to him with his own hands. Of course, it's not the city that they are destroying right now, it's something more valuable. When our hero raised his head, he saw fire everywhere. The Archlich brought this damned empire to its knees with his own strength. There is an old saying that the longer the wait, the sweeter the revenge. Ultimately, the Archlich achieved what he had planned 1,000 years ago. The ruler of the empire, Howard Adele Light, called him a disgusting monster, but for a hellish creature, this is a compliment. He exterminated the entire people of the Helios Empire, and one can imagine how joyful this moment was for him after so much time. The Archlich decided it was time to end the chatter and begin the coronation. To be called an emperor is hardly an exaggeration. The Demon Kings and the Death Knight did a great job. All that was left for them to do was to bring the imperial crown to their patron. This honor was bestowed upon the Death Knight, who had made the greatest contribution to bringing the Archlich to this point. He will receive nothing for this because he is a slave, and therefore, serving the master is the greatest reward possible. Our hero didn't bring the crown, he threw it up, which distracted the attention of those around him, after which he cut it down, at the same time attacking his master. The Archlich barely managed to defend himself, but the Death Knight managed to wound him. The Demon Kings immediately responded to the treacherous attack. The Archlich does not understand what his slave is doing because he did not give the order. Moreover, our hero is his strongest warrior, who was able to wound the master despite the fact that he had protection. But the Death Knight no longer needs commands. He acts according to his own will, and at this moment he wishes to kill the enslaver. The Archlich was sure that he had completely erased our hero's consciousness, but in reality he never disappeared. All this time he was watching, locked in his own body. Our hero is his greatest creation. For his achievements, he will only allow him to release his anger this once, until he finds a way to regain control. However, this prospect does not appeal to the Death Knight. He got rid of the Demon Kings with one swing of his sword. In this case, the Archlich intends to strike back. He summoned from the other world a mountain of corpses of sinners, which crawled towards our hero like zombies. However, they are too weak despite their quantity. The Death Knight destroyed them all at once with his power. The Archlich saw what a monster, similar to the gods, he had created. Besides, this monster is furious, and it looks like there is no way to negotiate with him. But even if the body is destroyed, he will simply send his soul to another world, and then resume control of the Death Knight. But our hero, locked up all these years, could think of nothing else but killing him. And in order to kill the Archlich, he created a sword technique that could cut even the soul. He, of course, thought that such technology could not exist. However, I didn't want to take any risks, so I tried to dodge. But our hero is quite skilled, so he was able to hit the target. The Archlich screamed in agony. The death of his soul was quite spectacular, and when the body fell, the skull rolled across the ground. So the Death Knight sent him back to hell. Howard Adele Light watched the whole scene from the side, not understanding what was happening. Having won, our hero fell to his knees, experiencing joy and bitterness. It was all over. There was only one thing left to do: apologize to his loved ones, even if he can only meet them after death. As a Death Knight, he slaughtered his entire family, for which I must definitely ask them for forgiveness. Our hero committed suicide, hoping to meet his family in the afterlife. As soon as life left his body, he heard the voice of his sister, Louise. He thought he had a chance to see her before he went to hell. The sister reminded that our hero, Damien Haxon, will receive something from his father, but she will support him. However, everything around turned out to be quite real. Besides, Louise looks young, and he clearly remembers how he destroyed the mansion that he saw in front of him with his own hands. Maybe Damien isn't dead, and this is just a dream, although it's definitely not a dream. It can't be that the years I spent as a Death Knight were just a dream. He is definitely in the real world. And to find out whether the Death Knight existed, our hero decided to test his strength. Damien felt the energy in his body that he had learned to control under the Archlich, and armed with an ordinary stick, he was able to use this energy to destroy the stone. Everything turned out much better than our hero initially expected. This is not a dream. He returned to the past and was given a chance to correct his mistakes and protect his family. Living through this time for the first time, Damien had a special talent for tarnishing the honor of his family. His father was constantly yelling at him. There were always reasons, for example, a commotion in a bar, after which our hero was thrown out of there. Or because he hit the son of the Marquis of Lionbloom, which is why Louise was married to his rude son. This is the second talent, the talent of trampling on the future of one's relatives. The mother cried because Damien had borrowed money using the land belonging to their family as collateral. This is the third talent, the talent of getting rid of their property. As a result, Because of these talents, his father could not stand it and kicked him out of the house. He had to do this, although in fact he loves his son very much. The whole family loves him. But our hero brought them a lot of troubles and suffering. Louise wanted Damien to be happy. She was always kind, and even when he left, she gave him money. This made our hero feel ashamed because he had ruined her life. So he couldn't utter a word of farewell. He just grabbed the money and quickly ran away. And on the day he ran away from his family, he understood for the first time what guilt and shame were. But there was nothing I could do to fix it. However, Damien somehow managed to return to the past. He certainly wanted to apologize to his family, but he didn't expect to turn back time. It is possible that this is some kind of divine miracle. His body is weak, so he won't be able to use such powerful techniques as in the body of a Death Knight. That technique with the stick, that technique, increases the effect of the blow many times over. He received it after killing a knight nicknamed the Destroyer of the castle walls. His thoughts were interrupted by a servant who came to call him into the house. A lot of time has passed. Damien no longer remembers the names of many people. He guessed that his name was Victor, and he guessed correctly. Victor came to find out why Damien was still here because Louise told him to come back. The father is furious, but our hero doesn't even remember what he did. What surprised Victor? But there is no choice. I will have to find out for myself. As soon as Damien crossed the threshold, his father attacked him with a sword. Our hero caused a commotion in the bar and was thrown out. Such an act tarnishes the family's reputation. It was at this moment that Damien returned. His father was so angry that he was ready to cripple the scoundrel, but his mother and sister stopped him. Despite this, our hero is happy to see his family again. He missed them so much that he even burst into tears. However, the father was very surprised to hear that his son was not going to make excuses. This is very unlike him. Usually Damien always plays on pity with his excuses, and he knows it. But hearing it directly from his father is painful. Our hero's mistakes have tarnished the honor of Viscount Haxon. They happened solely through his fault. There is no room for excuses here. But despite such serious talk, the father is not going to let this go unpunished. Damien sincerely apologized and promised to make amends. He will correct the mistakes he made, and upon his return, he will receive a fitting punishment. His whole family was surprised, but his father couldn't find the words to respond. He even thought that he had hit him on the head too hard. Our hero went to the trading city, Landwork. Victor took him to the bar where he had earlier had an altercation. The servant is worried, because there are rumors that the syndicate itself supports them. But our hero went anyway, and if Victor is scared, then let him return to the mansion. Damien asked him not to worry, because he was not going to do anything, just apologize sincerely. And indeed, everything will be fine if everything goes smoothly. Our hero doesn't know how he returned to the past, but it looks like God gave him a second chance, and he can't hurt his family again. Our hero intends to correct the mistakes of the past one by one. However, the bouncers are not very happy to see him, as they asked him not to be seen. Damien doesn't remember them well, since many years have passed, but they seem strangely familiar. He said that he wanted to offer a sincere apology to the owner of the establishment. The bouncers laughed. They didn't expect such dignified behavior from an aristocrat so suddenly. Everyone knows that our hero is the eldest son of a lousy family, but it turns out that he is better than they thought. Out of the blue, they started talking about his sister, a rare beauty, and then they started to behave disgustingly, mocking him for suddenly wanting to accept his apology. And in return, they asked me to introduce my sister to them. But our hero couldn't stand it and deftly pulled out a knife. He planned to simply apologize and go home, but it seems he overestimated himself. And for such rudeness and insult to Louise, the punishment cost the bandits much more dearly. Besides, our hero was even more angry at the insult towards his sister. If they so wish, Damien will show them what the eldest son of the Viscounty Haxon is really like. Victor is in a panic. He thought that his master would sort everything out, and it won't make things 100 times worse. The brawl also attracted many curious spectators who wanted to watch. The second bandit began to frighten our hero with his status. No one has ever managed to get away with a conflict with the Black Snake Gang. Our hero finally remembered. The Black Snake is an organization that was expanding its influence in Landwork around this time. This bar was one of those they had their eye on. When Damien complained about the food being too expensive, he was beaten and mocked in front of the crowd. Remembering this, he realized that they should apologize to him. The bandit won't be soft on Damien just because he's noble. However, he underestimated his enemy too much. Our hero believes that it will not be enough to kill them here and now, but he is still ready to restrain himself for the good of his family. However, he left a serious wound as a memento for the second one. Backup came out into the yard, the rest of the gang members arriving at the bar. At first, they assumed that our hero was a member of another organization, but he denied this, saying that he came to apologize, but realized that they should apologize to him. The bandits considered this rudeness and promised to shake the soul out of him. The leader ordered to take our hero. They all pounced on him at once, but our Damien handled it with ease. This body is weak. Shortness of breath has already appeared. Their leader tried to resolve everything with words and asked for forgiveness, but it's too late to back out. Our hero grabbed it with ease. At this time, there are many people relaxing in the establishment. Damien distracted the drunks with a spectacular appearance. He entered the hall with a hostage, holding a knife to his throat. You should have listened when he asked nicely. The people were so scared that they ran away in panic. and our hero, as if nothing had happened, went inside. The owner of the bar, Anderson Home, came out to him, not understanding where all the security had gone. With a calm face, Damien informed him that he had dealt with them. Anderson was surprised that someone had dealt with the members of the Black Snake, but still decided to find out who was disturbing the order. Our hero demanded that he apologize for the past incident, that he was beaten for making a remark about inflated prices. Because of this, everyone around him considers Damien an alcoholic and a troublemaker. Besides, such rumors affect his entire family, who has lost too much. However, Anderson noted that Viscounty Haxon no longer had any honor to lose. He doesn't intend to apologize after this speech and asks our hero to pay for disturbing the order in his bar. If he had simply asked for forgiveness, Damien would have forgiven him. Well, if he wants to play differently, then so be it. He will also pay for what he said. It turned out that Anderson had another security guard. He is quite strong and was able to stop our hero's blow. Damien felt a special energy. Anderson thanked Sir Ted for arriving on time. Our hero doubts that such a person should work in such a place. Okay, the Black Snake Gang, but the knight definitely shouldn't be here. Knights follow the path of martial arts their entire lives and are assigned ranks based on their skill level. Official knights are people with exceptional talent who can freely use aura, cleave mountains with one blow, and cut fortress walls like paper. This is why Anderson feels safe. After all, he is protected by the apprentice knight Ted, who is very close to the boss of the Black Snake. He thinks that our hero should already consider himself dead. This explains the weak aura that Damien felt earlier, although Ted himself is surprised because he didn't even materialize it. Now Damien understands why such a person works in such a place. He was probably thrown out because he wasn't talented enough to be promoted to the rank of official knight. Ted was so angry that even the discussion of the price for his murder was postponed until later. First of all, he wants to tear this chatty mouth apart. It seemed to him that he could win with the first blow because our hero's reaction seemed slow. However, at the very last moment, he deftly dodged. For an apprentice knight, Ted was quite skilled. His movements were wide and his strikes were very accurate. Damien is almost at his limit. With a body like this, he can't give it his all. During training, he should focus on strengthening his endurance. In anger, Ted decides to deliver his best blow. Feeling the power of the aura, our hero realized that the blow would be really good. This is some kind of secret technique. You need to respond with the appropriate technique. As a Death Knight, Damien encountered the legendary assassin, the master of the Death Blade, the Phantom Assassin. He was a maniacal person and found joy in killing people. Or, it would now be more correct to say, it will be in the near future. Our hero met him and fought him one-on-one. Although the Phantom Assassin did not want to kill all worthy opponents at once, he wanted to prolong the fun. He can see that most of the human body is made up of water. As soon as such a level is reached, this master can cut a human body even with a wooden sword. The Phantom Assassin believes he has won, and Damien should have left when he let him go. The Death Knight's body is capable of regenerating even when it is split in half. After all, this is not a human body, but an undead one. In addition, the Death Knight possesses the power of the greedy, which is capable of absorbing other people's techniques. And then he immediately put the acquired knowledge into practice. The Phantom Assassin was pleasantly surprised to meet a stronger opponent, but immediately said goodbye to his life. Damien used the same technique on Ted. It was always like this. Our hero's enemies could never believe what killed them. After becoming a Death Knight, Damien gained a unique ability. But Anderson is terrified, because there is no one left to protect him. He decided to beg and apologize, to accept all conditions just to survive. In the end, our hero received the apologies he came for from everyone, including the beaten gang members, and including financial consolation, as compensation for the insult and inconvenience. Since their family was constantly losing money because of their eldest son, it would be great to bring this money home. Our hero called Victor to come inside and pack everything. He is horrified, surprised, and happy at the same time. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed what happened. Moreover, Victor doesn't understand when Damien managed to learn such sword techniques. The servant had never seen so much money in his life. But Anderson intends to take back everything that our hero took from him later, after talking with the boss of the Black Snake. However, Damien decided to keep something as a memento, because of the money, he almost forgot about the punishment. Our hero asked Anderson to convey a message to the Black Snake, that if they laid a finger on his family, he would never let it go. Although Anderson was scared, he still went to the boss, hoping for his influence. After all, such a bully cannot be invincible. He is sure that the Black Snake boss will find a way to put Damien in his place. Our hero is fully aware that this will not wash away his past sins. But in his new life, he will try not to disappoint his family anymore. That same evening, at the house of the Marquis of Lionbloom, Erwin Lionbloom spins in front of the mirror and tells his brother that love is always followed by pain. But he doesn't understand what he's talking about. He makes statements like he's about to go into battle. But this is not the case. Erwin is determined to find love. The next morning in Viscounty, Haxon, Victor, and Damien returned home from the city with a huge amount of loot. Our hero hasn't slept this well in a long time, but Victor envies him because he was so worried that he couldn't sleep for a second. Damien certainly deviated a little from the original goal, but they got a big reward. And most importantly, rumors will soon begin to spread about how one daredevil got involved with Haxon's eldest son and was routed. And then no one will treat their family lightly anymore, and his bad reputation might also change a little. All this is of course good, but Victor is worried about the Black Snake, and besides them, Damien even beat up some knight apprentice. No matter how brave the bandits were, they would not dare attack a noble family, and even if they did, our hero would stop them. Even from the perspective of an ordinary servant, our hero's swordsmanship seems far from ordinary. Damien declined and said he was just training occasionally, and so the father found out that his son had returned and ran to him as fast as he could, preparing for the worst. It's become a habit. If Damien is absent all day, it means that unflattering rumors will soon reach us. He grabbed him by the shoulders and asked him not to say that he had caused trouble again. However, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that our hero had sorted everything out. And besides, he brought home a lot of money. Among the coins, there is also a deed to the land, and now his parents will be able to pay off their wage arrears. Damien said that he returned to the bar from which he was thrown out and cleared up the misunderstanding. And as an apology, he received a reward from the bar owner, although his father still doesn't fully believe it. Our hero asked Victor to tell his father that all his words were true. And in general, without going into details, that's how it was. But no one heard Victor's hesitant denial. His young master is obviously a pathological liar. After Damien tested his body in a real fight, he decided to start training. The most important thing is jogging to increase his endurance. His body is too slow and weak. He has a lot to do, but in this state, it is impossible. But he was still lucky enough to get something that would help him develop faster. This is a tonic created by the Alchemy Academy to increase stamina and energy. Damien had already heard of a group of alchemists who specialized in creating tonics. Such tonics are sold at the same price as precious stones. After drinking the bottle, our hero felt how powerful this thing was. He must return to the same level he had in his past life. In just a few years, the undead created by the Archlich will come to this world. The very same bastard that our hero hates with all his heart. During this time, Damien wants to gain strength and kill him before something bad happens. Only then will he be able to protect the happiness of his family, and this time he will definitely finish off Dorgo. At night in Landwork, in the shelter of the Black Snake, they dragged the defeated knight apprentice to the boss, who was now useless to them. It's a shame, because he's the best they ever hired. But despite this, the Black Snake's boss, Cedric Walker, did not send him for treatment, but simply ordered him to be thrown out. He believes that there is no point in treating the wounded. After all, they can buy anyone if they pay enough. The knight struggled to his feet as he heard how everything had turned out. Cedric was surprised that he could stand on his feet. He even offered treatment and possible continuation of cooperation. But Ted doesn't need such partners, because if it happens that he gets wounded again, he knows for sure that he will be abandoned. So, with the last of his strength, he decided to try to wound the son of a bitch, sending him to hell. However, he did not succeed. His legs were bound by binding magic. And then she entangled his entire body. A powerful magician came out to them and offered to make Ted the first target of the recently concluded contract. Cedric Walker decided that this was a good chance to evaluate the abilities of the new warrior. The magician began to read the spells, after which the magic enveloping Ted began to take some form. She turned into worms with a huge mouth and teeth, which began to destroy their victim entirely, even the bones. At the end, one leg fell to the floor. This sight was disgusting to everyone present, and the boss asked them to try to do it more carefully next time. However, he hired this magician because of Damien, who damaged the reputation of their gang. And since he is from the nobility, it is not easy to deal with him directly. The boss ordered to make sure that our hero suffers, and the worse things get for him, the higher the payment. But for now, it's only an advance. The magician accepted the money and asked to rely on him. The next day, our hero decided to train his strength. He built himself a barbell from what he found. The supplement I took earlier is very effective. My endurance has increased dramatically over the last few days. Although it's strange that nothing happened during these days, Damien was expecting the Black Snake right after the story in the bar. As soon as he thought about this, he heard someone watching him in the bushes. He immediately rushed into attack. However, it turned out to be only his younger brother Abel. Abel noticed that his older brother had become much stronger since the last time they saw each other. True, our hero's last meeting with him was a little different. He apologized for hurting him and offered him his hand to help him up. However, Abel did not come for an apology. He heard from his father that Damien had been asked for forgiveness at the bar, but he also heard that there was a fight in which many people were injured. His older brother could not possibly emerge victorious from it, which means he is deceiving the whole family. Damien corrected him, because it was true that he emerged victorious. Abel doesn't believe him, because he doesn't even know how to fight. He probably hired someone. But in any case, he told Damien not to do anything that would reflect badly on their family. After all, they tried very hard to correct his mistakes. Abel was always diligent and wanted only the best for his family. But now he doesn't have to worry because nothing bad will happen anymore. This moment was interrupted by Victor, clearly in a panic and with bad news. The brothers immediately ran to their father's office. They saw the upset and frightened faces of their parents. Erwin Lionbloom came to them and sat and talked about what happened at the banquet. He apologized for coming so suddenly, but he couldn't really do anything when his father found out about everything. Our hero doesn't really remember the order of events, but it looks like he's already done something wrong with Erwin. At the banquet, Erwin insulted him, and Damien, being tipsy, reacted sharply to this. Moreover, he insulted not only him, but also disgraced his sister and denied it in front of everyone. Then he provoked Damien even more by whispering nasty things in his ear so that those around him couldn't hear. At that moment, our hero should not have given in to his provocations. But it already happened. He hit him hard in the face, and Erwin was glad, because this is exactly what he was trying to achieve. It was strange that a man close to becoming a knight would allow himself to be beaten. He always admired Louise, and everything that happened was part of his plan. Erwin came to their house to ask for her hand from Paul Osborne Haxon. History repeats itself. In his past life, he took advantage of the fact that their family was not rich. If Paul agrees to give up his daughter, the problem that has arisen will remain at the family level. But after receiving a refusal, Erwin became angry, because how could the Haxon family cope with the anger of his family? He offers to make a choice, pay the price for his insult or choose him as Louise's fiancé. Lionbloom, one of the most powerful noble families in the kingdom. But Paul can't let that bastard take his daughter. However, Louise entered the room and gave her consent. She was ready to marry a man she did not love for the sake of the well-being of the family. She was always too kind and sacrificial. Her parents tried to dissuade her and wait until they found another way out. They asked not to sacrifice themselves to correct Damien's mistakes. But it hurts our hero to watch her ruin her life because of him again. A sly smile had already spread across Erwin's face. He decided that he had achieved his goal. He called her a wise girl and warned that he would soon send an official request. Our hero, experiencing colossal anger, stood between Erwin and Louise. After all, this funny bastard ruined his sister's life and was going to do it again. The first thing Damien said, few people could make out, so Erwin asked him to say it again so he could hear. But he only received an uppercut. Our hero shouldn't have given in to his provocation for the sake of his sister and family. But he can't just stand there silently. In his past life, when the maid announced that Lady Louise and Sir Erwin's carriage had arrived, Damien happily ran towards it. It was their first visit in a long time, and he missed her very much. However, when he wanted to enter the room, he saw a terrible picture. Erwin beat Louise because she whined about the house, and when they arrived, she told them about her future plans. In this bastard's opinion, she has no right to say that she will leave after she sold out her permanent family, and yet he still dared to call her his love. Erwin intended to educate her properly so that she would never dare to say anything like that again, and our hero watched all this in horror, standing behind the door. However, he was weak then, and he also blamed himself for her being taken away. This hatred has remained for years, but now he has the opportunity to fight back. And in this life, he will not allow that terrible story to be repeated. The knights guarding Erwin immediately came running to the noise. They were confused when they saw the second young gentleman lying on the floor. Now their swords are pointed at our hero. But Erwin himself stood up. He was angry that Damien dared to hit him in the face, and not once, but twice. The parents don't know what to do anymore, and Erwin suggested that our hero must really want to die. The security asked him to calm down, as people were watching and they would deal with it themselves. It's their job to deal with such rude bastards. But because they butted in, Erwin sent the one who talked the most flying. After all, it was his order to step aside. He asked Damien again how he intended to resolve the situation. Louise decided that Erwin would not leave her brother alone, so she tried to stop him. But our hero asked her to stay put and stop sacrificing herself. Our hero offered to fight a duel. If Erwin wins, he will do everything as he says. But if Damien wins, his opponent will have to forget about everything that happened. However, Erwin decided that these conditions were not beneficial for him, since Louise had already agreed to marry him. And our hero dared him, joking that he was afraid of losing. Erwin is confident in his abilities, and decided that this is an excellent chance to leave Damien crippled and take his sister. They all went out into the yard to have a duel. His parents hope that their son is so confident because he has planned something, and it would be better if that is the case. But Abel doesn't believe in Damien, because Erwin is already supposedly at the level of an official knight. Our hero further infuriated his opponent by saying that a fork would be enough to win against him. At first, he didn't understand what kind of strange joke this was. The Haxon family has already mentally lost everything they have. Once his confusion had passed, Erwin laughed out loud. Deciding that Damien had gone crazy with fear, he rushed at him. I'm not going to be lenient. However, our hero easily dodged his powerful blow. In this case, Erwin intends to use a technique that covers a wider radius. And the name of this technique is the Sword of a Fierce Roaring Lion. Our hero easily dodged these multiple attacks that flew at him like a whirlwind. This dexterity put Erwin in a difficult position. Damien was stunned by his opponent, thanks to his training over the past few days, and in a perfect analysis of the ball's art in the Lionbloom family, before the regression, he managed to fight with his brother Michael. And Erwin is much weaker in strength than his older brother. The enemy is furious. He is sure that Damien was lucky enough to dodge, but the next attack will be even stronger. Our hero was able to assess the situation, feeling Erwin's aura, and he chose the most suitable technique for this situation, the Holy Sword technique. True, he used this technique with just a fork, which made Erwin look like an idiot in front of everyone. And after Damien threw his sword aside, he went on the attack. He stuck a fork into his neck, but not too deeply, so as not to kill, but only to confirm the victory. Abel and Louise didn't expect this from their older brother, and their parents were shocked too. And Erwin's self-confidence is shattered. Our hero would of course like to kill him, but even killing him dozens of times for what he did would not be enough. Besides, it's better to stop this time for the good of the family. The winner has been determined. Now, as promised, Erwin must get out of their territory. The next morning, the whole family had breakfast at the large dining table. Our hero left first, hurrying to his morning training. After he left, the awkward silence was broken by his mother, who asked if his father was going to talk to him. Abel still can't believe that his older brother, who was as weak as he was, suddenly acquired such strength. But Paul asked everyone to be quiet and not to pressure Damien with questions. He would tell him himself when the time came. In fact, he himself is terribly interested, but something tells him that it's better not to pester his son with questions. Before training, our hero put on 10-kilogram weights. And when he was about to leave, Louise came up to him to talk about what happened yesterday. She hadn't had time to say anything yet, but he immediately apologized for acting recklessly and putting her in a difficult position. He should have apologized in advance and will do everything to ensure that something like this never happens again. But that's not why she came. Louise is very grateful to him that he prevented her from accepting the offer. In fact, she was very scared, even though she said that she would go with Erwin, but her heart told her otherwise. Damien stood up for her. She was sorry, but at the same time she was very happy. That's why she wanted to thank him. Our hero believes that it is not she who should thank him, but the other way around. And the father also asked to give him the sword, the one and only favorite thing of the father. The head of the family is not very good at expressing his feelings, but he loves his eldest son very much. He also asked Louise to tell Damien that he was the Viscount's son and therefore should never use a fork instead of a sword again. That night, when everyone had already gone to bed, black magic approached their house. She crept up unnoticed and entangled the guards, after which she put them to sleep. Then the magician himself showed his face, having easily entered their family's territory. He walked into the part of the house where the bedrooms were located, and his attention was drawn to the beautiful Louise. The magician came at the request of the Black Snake, but luck unexpectedly smiled on him. However, our hero had been waiting for someone from that gang to appear for a long time, so he didn't miss his appearance even at night. Feeling a strange energy coming from this room, he immediately stood up to see what kind of stranger dared to enter the house. The mage's magic was supposed to put everyone to sleep, so he's surprised it didn't work on Damien. And besides, he didn't even notice the presence of our hero until he got so close. Confused and frightened, the mage tried to attack Damien, but he easily dodged it and demanded that the stranger tell him who he was and what he had done to his sister. The servants heard a noise from the room of young Mrs. Louise. Realizing that the servants had woken up, the magician decided that it would be bad for him if a crowd gathered. That's why he quickly ran away, and our hero didn't have time to do anything. However, this is not a problem for him. He felt this energy, a trace left by dark magic. In the morning, the grooms found a dead horse, which was valuable property. They were scared, because how could they tell the master that a horse that had been completely healthy before had died? Our hero scared them by appearing from behind, and it was not for nothing that he had a bad feeling. He asked them not to panic. Damien only came to check something and was not going to blame anyone. A trace of the energy he lost last night was found in the stable with the dead horse, and there is no doubt that this sinister energy is definitely dark mana. He did not tell his family about what happened so as not to worry them, but he himself intends to track down the dark magician. The trail led him to a cave hidden in the forest thicket, inside which is the lair of a dark magician who thinks that the boss of the Black Snake is too stupid to seriously give him everything he asked for. The magician told him that a list of specific ingredients was needed for the curse, but this was a lie. Now he will be able to conduct his experiments at any time. However, he is upset that he takes on low-grade tasks to earn a little change. But there was no other choice, considering that the church was already on his tail. So he would have to lie low for a while, but then he smelled a strange stench. This is why old people cannot live locked up alone. The dark magician saw in front of him the eldest son of Viscount Haxon, whom he had already met the previous night. He heard Damien recklessly confront the Black Snake and believes he is nothing more than a reckless boy. The magician blabbed that he was hired by the Black Snake. They wanted him to cause as much harm as possible to the entire Haxon family. Damien took pity on him, took on this kind of work, and now he will die. But the magician is confident that if he captures our hero and tortures him, he will make an excellent entertainment animal. This will not happen, and Damien also made a vow to himself that in this life he will not kill anyone unless it is absolutely necessary. There is one exception, however, and that is the dirty dark magicians, like the man across from me. If our hero knows so much, then he is definitely not an ordinary guy. But the magician is confident in his spells, which have helped him defeat a strong opponent many times. Our hero didn't say anything else. He simply rushed forward, dodging all attacks. The dark magician was completely unable to follow his quick movements. Damien managed to cut it into 2 pieces, but his body is being reassembled. This is the same ability that our hero saw in the mansion. He's quite strong for someone who takes on such a crappy job. The magician himself laughs, because such blows are not capable of inflicting wounds on him. But in that case, Damien intends to cut him until there is nothing left of him. Our hero began to poke him with his sword endlessly, as if dispersing smoke. The magician appreciated his abilities, and it was not without reason that rumors about him had spread in recent days. But in his opinion, as soon as our hero entered this cave, he signed his own death warrant. He enchanted every corner here to prevent persecution of the church. Damien realizes that things have become very dangerous. The enemy said that our hero would regret crossing Yulan's officer's path, and his whole body will rot to the ground. Our hero was entangled in magic like a cocoon. The magician already felt victory, believing that the arrogant boy had shortened his life. Most likely, this fate suits the conditions of the Black Snake boss, and now that Damien will not interfere, he will meet with Louise. However, he rejoiced too soon. Our hero remained unharmed. This can only mean that he knows a lot about black magic. Damien doesn't show it, but he's just as stunned as his opponent. The power, also known as the authority of God, remained within him. It was received when he was still a Death Knight. The Archlich gifted him with the strongest body and filled him with the most powerful magic. But he was not completely satisfied, as he wanted his knight to be the most powerful sword and evil he possessed. Therefore, he considered it his duty to grant him this power as well. In order to turn it into an absolute weapon, he placed a piece of his soul into our hero, and they merged. However, the result surprised him greatly. After all, at the same time, he also revealed the potential of the Death Knight, who showed incredible power. This is precisely the power that the Archlich desired to master. Finally, he waited for this day. With this power of God, he will be able to conquer the entire continent. Our hero thought that during the regression he lost this power. But it's her, there's no doubt about it. The Dark Mage has absolutely no idea how the enemy was able to survive his spell. However, Damien does not plan to reveal his cards. And by the way, the Dark Magician called himself an officer of Yulan. Our hero had heard about them somehow. It is an organization that specializes in assassinations using dark magic. So it's no surprise that the enemy is so capable. The Dark Magician understands that the longer this drags on, the worse the situation he finds himself in. He kept one card up his sleeve in case of an encounter with the church, but apparently, he can't do without it now. A powerful aura enveloped the enemy. He became an order of magnitude stronger and received a considerable amount of dark mana. There must definitely be an artifact that stores mana hidden in his bracelet. According to the magician, it no longer matters how Damien managed to cope with his spell. He certainly won't be able to cope with this and will burn in hellfire. Our hero was touched by hellfire, which burns forever, even after death. However, the Dark Magician seriously misunderstood something. Damien's power of the greedy does not cancel out magic. It completely absorbs all dark mana. The enemy is amazed. He does not understand how someone like our hero can wield such terrifying power. He will not know the answer to his questions. But what really angers our hero is that he must use the power given to him by the one he hates most. However, in order to kill the one standing in front of him now, he has no choice but to use the Death Knight technique. The Dark Mage saw the aura surrounding Damien's sword, a sword technique that only those who have reached the level of a master can use. At this moment, the enemy tried to stop our hero and try to negotiate, but it was too late. Even the ability he had previously used against physical attacks wouldn't save him from this blow. After all, the aura covering the sword is capable of cutting through the soul. The technique is called the soul-tearing cut. Before the Dark Magician died, our hero managed to find out the approximate location of the Black Snake's refuge. Arriving at Landwork, Damien sent Victor on an important mission while he headed to the Black Snake's boss, Cedric. He was absolutely confident in his strength. But when he returned after dinner with the governor of Landwork, he saw his people on the ground. He realized that everything would not go as smoothly as he thought. Damien had done this all by himself. His subordinate said that this was definitely the eldest son of the Haxon family, at least that's the name he gave. Cedric had heard rumors that he was a worthless son of a viscount, but he never thought he was so capable. Then he realized that the Dark Magician had most likely already been killed. He can't cope on his own, he definitely needs help, and he quickly ran for it. Bandits who specialize in items made of magic decided to stop him using their own methods. See if he can block their attack. The orb at the end of the staff contains a reserve of fire mana that can be released by the wielder of the staff. At first, the enemy laughed, thinking that Damien was trying to stop their flames with his sword. But this is a secret movement, the revelation of an endless thunder shadow, which creates a vortex and changes the direction of attacks of this type. Thus, this powerful flame flew back to the bandits. They won't be able to take part in this mess anymore. Now it's time to find out who this so-called Black Snake boss is. But as soon as our hero defeated all the bandits, another enemy appeared. For some reason, a knight attacked him, and a pretty strong one at that. His aura is so dense that it tingles the skin. He wondered who the bastard who had caused the disturbance was and came to investigate. But it turned out to be a young, self-confident guy. If his energy is at this level, then he is most likely an official knight. People are starting to worry about this situation in the very center of the city. Knights and even soldiers responsible for maintaining public order gathered around our hero. Then, no doubt, the city's governor, Sebastian Baker, came to the criminal's defense. In the end, Damien was found guilty, and the governor will ensure that he receives the punishment he deserves. However, our hero decided to ask why he was going to punish him. The governor pretends that Boss Cedric is a respectable businessman, although he knows the truth, and Damien attempted to kill him. In addition, he attacked his company and killed dozens of his innocent workers, although the townspeople themselves understand that this is not true. No matter how ruthless Damien is, Cedric is confident that he will not dare touch a man under the governor's protection. Our hero guessed that the Black Snake's boss might have some connections within the city administration. After this, Damien openly mocked the governor for calling this piece of trash a good businessman. He promised that if he immediately asked for forgiveness, he might generously reduce his sentence. The governor tried to be lenient, considering that he was only a young man, but Damien left him no choice. He ordered Sir Robert to apprehend the criminal. Robert is a knight guarding this city. He suggested that Damien lay down his arms and not resist the arrest. Despite everything that has happened, he does not see a single trace of fear in the eyes of our hero. But Damien is not a fool. He is just confident in himself. Even though he told him so, given his current level, fighting the knight won't be that easy. At the moment, all he has to do is buy time. Robert hit with his fist. Damien tried to fend it off as best he could. However, he still got it. For just a moment, he looked back to see if the person he was waiting for had arrived. But the enemy is very fast. Looking around is equal to death. Finally, the man Damien was waiting for arrived and saved him. This woman effortlessly repelled the knight's attack with her bare hands. The governor and the Black Snake boss are shocked by what happened. Robert, assuming that Damien had a partner, asked her to identify herself. As soon as the woman removed her hood, there was no longer any need to introduce herself. Victor brought a church paladin with him. Made it at the last moment. Cedric tensed up when he learned that the church was involved in the situation, because it will be bad for him if they already know that he made a deal with the dark magician. Our hero waited for Victor for a very long time, but he completed his task. Although he is an ordinary servant, he is able to carry out such orders. A few hours ago, Damien gave him a bag with the dark mage's head, a diary, and several of his grimoires. Victor, with all this, ran to the holy church where Agnes met him. He told her that his master had asked her to quickly hand over the bag with the head and the grimoires to the church. This is some kind of proof that someone is working with a dark magician. She became interested and asked to show her what he brought. The energy is weak, but it is definitely dark magic. And in the corner, Agnes noticed Yulan's sign. She grabbed the bag, hoping to see there the head of the magician the whole church was looking for. Without feeling the slightest bit of disgust, she pulled the tail. Of course, Victor found this sight extremely unpleasant. She finally holds the head of one of the Yulin leaders, Ajito, in her hands, and wishes to meet the master who sent her the head. And finally, having seen him in person, she reported that she had received the evidence sent and the church would deal with it. Our hero has no intention of standing in their way. The church is free to do whatever it sees fit. A church paladin arrived at the scene. Everything is going exactly as our hero planned. Holy Church, they live their lives in service to God. They are infinitely merciful and generous to the common people. But when it comes to heretics and demons, they will not hesitate for a second and will throw their souls into the sacred flame. The vanguard of this church is made up of paladins. And the most important thing is that these paladins are now on Damien's side. Agnes made an announcement to the city's residents and soldiers that the church received a report of a man who had made a contract with a wanted dark mage and was located in their city. And while they are looking for those involved, the church will become the head of the city. The governor immediately began to protest because the city had received permission for self-government, and he, the king's viceroy, was here. However, the eradication of heretics is the will of God. The power of the church stands above the power of the kingdom. In addition, Viceroy Sebastian and his knight are the main suspects. The governor immediately began to deny any connection with the dark magician. In fact, he really didn't know anything. But Cedric hid and supported the dark wizard. The mere protection of such a person is enough to raise suspicions. He continues to deny his guilt. But to his misfortune, Ajito kept a diary that contained all the evidence of their contract. There are records of how Cedric Walker bought things for the dark wizard. Each item is described. They will know whether it is a lie or not as soon as they compare what is written in the diary with the records of the stores. Cedric continues to deny it, but it doesn't matter. They will find out everything during the investigation. In the meantime, the suspects will be sent to prison to await a decision. All this happened in the very center of the city, in front of the people. Never mind the Black Snake boss. The governor and his knight's reputations are already ruined. Sebastian realized that Damien had planned all of this from the start, which is why he stood so bravely until the very end. He is also scared because he doesn't know what these fanatics will do to him, and Cedric decided to egg Robert on, hinting that he was allowing himself to be insulted like that. But even without this, the knight is thinking about his next step. Allowing yourself to be captured is the path to imminent death. So he'd better kill them all and disappear. Watching this picture, our hero understands that Robert is making a huge mistake. After all, to stand against a paladin of such a level is the path to imminent death. Without a second's hesitation, Agnes finished off the heretic. After all, anyone who disobeys the will of God will be punished. The Black Snake boss fell to his knees, realizing that he had no chance of getting out. Viceroy Sebastian continues to shout about his status. Damien and Victor, speaking loudly, deliberately discuss the Black Snake's boss, who, contrary to rumors, appears to be a non-entity. And Cedric still can't believe that because of such a puppy he ended up in such a situation. The paladin came as a difficult person. Judging by her holy power, there is a high probability that she is a student of the Azure Flame. Brigantine, the most powerful man in the church, one of the 5 great saints. He is famous for executing a large number of heretics. It is difficult for Agnes to fully express her gratitude for the work she did to eliminate Officer Yulan. For this act, the church acknowledges the fact of assistance and will not accuse Damien of anything. He pretended that they completely understood what she was talking about. But she had long since understood perfectly well that he had called the church to cover his attack on the Black Snake. It's better not to joke with the church, Damien apologized and said that the dark magician tried to harm his family. Agnes sympathized with him, but she hadn't planned to do anything with him in the first place. And given the circumstances, she cannot hold him accountable. Also, the reward for Ajito's head will be paid soon. 1,000 gold pieces are set for it. For this money, you can buy a small castle. But Damien wanted to ask the church for something else. He would like to learn one of the mana cultivation techniques belonging to the church. This seemed strange to her, because our hero is strong enough to defeat an entire gang on his own. But after the battle with the dark magician, he fully realized that he was lucky to win due to another force. But to defeat an even stronger enemy in the future, to reach an even higher level, he definitely needs the mana training techniques used by knights. Techniques more advanced than what he had studied. He has only studied basic techniques and is asking for a reward of this kind to master something more complex. Agnes can already feel the significant mana flowing inside his body. And if he is not lying, then he has an extremely outstanding talent. He also has the determination to get rid of heretics without hesitation. She decided to offer him a much better alternative, to become a paladin of the church. Without thinking at all, our hero immediately refused. Victor noticed that his master had brought such a strong man to the ground with just one word. However, becoming a paladin is the greatest honor bestowed by God, allowing one to punish evil in his name. It's a very difficult position to achieve, but Damien never had an ounce of faith. And more importantly, he has no interest in living in the church like a dog. But this reason cannot be stated. Something else must be invented. Damien said that he is not yet worthy of the love of God himself. For now, he wishes to travel the world, exploring the ways of the Lord as his humble follower. Such holy words revived Agnes's ears. She will fulfill his request to provide mana cultivation technique in exchange for monetary rebirth. But if he suddenly changes his mind about joining the Paladins, she will gladly meet him in the church. Agnes introduced herself as the first student of the Azure Flame. It is a great honor to meet such a woman. Damien asked her to let him do one more thing in this place. The Black Snake boss looked up at our hero as he approached him. He thought that this brat would want to squeeze some information out of him that he needed. But it looks like his last act is to beat up a fat guy. He's so fat it looks like Damien is punching a pillow. But despite this, he kicked him heartily. Agnes and Victor watched this with bewilderment. Now our hero is completely satisfied with the result. Victor asked the gentleman if this story was over, but who knows. Meanwhile, Marcus ate Lionbloom. The Marquis of the Apple Kingdom, Holland, burst into his youngest son's room. He trembles under the blanket for a long time like a frightened kitten. He told him how one bastard tried to kill him. First he said he pointed a knife, then he changed it to a fork. For Holland, it's a horrific sight, his cheerful child shaking in terror. The Marquis ordered the guards accompanying him to tell in detail what had happened and who had done it. They immediately blurted out that it was Damien from the Viscountcy of Haxon. Since he doesn't believe in the presence of such a force in their family, he decided that our hero had used some kind of cunning trick. He ordered people to be sent to their mansion and dragged Damien Haxon to him like a dog. Our hero's parents were surprised by unexpected guests. A paladin from the Holy Church came to them. The father was angry that his son had created problems behind his back and had even brought fanatics into their house. Our hero allowed them to stay for a while the investigation was underway in the dark magician's lair. Paul tried to send them away, saying that there was no room in their small house. But upon seeing the gift, he immediately changed his mind. Agnes thanked Damien again for allowing their group to operate here. But in fact, when she asked for another request, Damien himself did not expect that they would come to his house. This investigation is very important to them, but she wants to ask for something else. The request was to possess Damien. Of course she meant his joining the church. But the parents understood this in their own way and already came up with all sorts of things. Agnes gave him the mana cultivation manual he requested, selected specifically for our hero. There are 2 books. One manual contains sword techniques. It would be wrong to give a cultivation manual without the corresponding sword techniques. Damien doesn't really need sword techniques, but it wouldn't hurt to have them. He never encountered those manuals in his past life. Agnes noted that it was very difficult to obtain them, since there were many dissenters from the church. She started telling him a story about how hard it had been for her, pressuring him to know how much she had done for him. And then she asked to reconsider the question of becoming a paladin. But our hero removed his hand and apologized. She understands, but again reminded him that if he changes his decision, then he should not doubt and come to her. As our hero thought, she is a 100% fanatic. Her obsession is something else. A little later, church ministers went to investigate the cave. The first thing they decided to do was rummage through the dark magician's things. One of them started talking about how suspicious everything was. Ajito is a high-ranking member of Yulan who has escaped persecution from the church numerous times. Sure, he's part of a cursed school, which means he's weaker in direct combat, but such a powerful mage died at the hands of a local nobleman. The second one also asked a similar question, but what they could do, Lady Agnes did not say a word about it. Therefore, I asked my partner not to worry. Now I need to focus on the investigation. Lady Agnes came up from behind and said that they could trust Damien Haxon completely. She understands the source of their doubts, but he did not lie, although they still cannot understand how he managed to kill Ajitha. She reminded them that they had already heard him do it. Our hero told them that he simply dodged and cut off his head. But his subordinates don't believe that he seriously just dodged and accidentally killed the magician. The day Victor brought the severed head, even she doubted Damien's abilities. So she kept her distance, observing from afar instead of directly interrogating. He single-handedly fought against dozens of mercenaries without receiving a single scratch and completely overpowered them. But what surprised her most was that he reflected a fireball, or, in other words, a magic spell. Her subordinates were very surprised to hear this. Agnes had heard that those who had reached the level of a swordmaster were able to block all types of attacks, including magical ones. She doesn't claim that he is a swordmaster, but he is obviously an outstanding warrior, so she believed the story about Ajito's murder. Although her main reason for coming here was to pursue Yulan, in truth, she also wanted to take Damien along with her on the journey. For him to meet her teacher, he could become a valuable asset to the church. So she asked her colleagues to put aside their doubts and focus on the investigation. Meanwhile, more guests arrived at the Viscountcy of Haxon. These are several knights from the Lionbloom house who have arrived for our hero as ordered. They are so pampered that some of them can't even recognize the smell of cow dung. Such discussions began to irritate their leader, so he shut them up. Official Knight Garrick. They are almost at the very gates of the mansion. He arrogantly believes that it will be easy for him to complete the task and catch our hero. But Garrick thinks that this is not enough to compensate for the shame experienced by young Master Irwin and the Marquise. An old man walked past and didn't pay any attention to them, which made Garrick angry. Hearing in response that he was a resident of the Viscountcy of Haxon, he immediately cut off the old man's head. After all, in his opinion, an ordinary citizen does not dare to pass by without bowing his head upon seeing the Lionbloom family coat of arms. And the knight apprentices sitting behind thought that this was too much, because the old man was blind, but they did not dare to say it out loud. Afterwards, Garrick looked at them and said that he had a brilliant idea. When they get to the Haxon family mansion, they'll drag that bastard Damien out of there. And then, right in front of him, they will finish off everyone who catches their eye. Due to a collapse at the crime scene, church officials were unable to gather sufficient evidence. Agnes reassured them, saying it was okay. They had done a good job anyway. On their way back to the Viscountcy of Haxon, they met Damien. He studied the materials on mana cultivation from a book the church provided him, and Agnes was amazed by what she saw. The destructive energy technique she gave him should be a cultivation method, allowing those who have reached the highest level to absorb the surrounding mana. But it's incredible to reach the peak in just a few hours. Opening his eyes, our hero saw their admiring glances and learned that they had already completed their investigation in the cave. She certainly wasn't exaggerating when she said that this book was hard to get. In his past life, Damien was a sword master, so the sword technique had no value to him, but this cultivation method was extremely useful. The destructive energy technique was created to compensate for the heavy mana consumption of the destructive sword technique. Thanks to this, it allows you to accumulate mana faster than other techniques, and even temporarily attract external mana. It was time for dinner, and Agnes suggested they go back together. But suddenly our hero felt a strong thirst for blood. The saboteur arrived. Damien has urgent business, so he will go first. The diagnosis asked me to return at my own pace, after which he ran home as fast as he could. Church officials praised its incredible speed while using little mana. Therefore, they understand that he controls mana with extraordinary precision. Agnes is very curious about how far Damien Haxon's limit is. At this time, Victor gets his fill from the Knights of Marquise Lionbloom's students. Once again, an innocent man is suffering because of Damien. Victor simply did not listen to their orders to bring our hero. However, the servant does not intend to betray his master and allow the uninvited guests to harm him. The servant, seeing what was happening, called the head of the family to sort things out. He asked them to stop immediately. The knights greeted him with glee. The first thing Paul did was run to Victor to check if he was okay. It's terrible that knights can attack a civilian like that. Garrick replied that it was nothing compared to what their family did to the Lionbloom family. He announced that Marquise Lionbloom demands that Damien Haxon be brought to him. If they give it away calmly, the earth will not be harmed. Paul is convinced that Garrick is definitely lying, and even if he gives them his son, they will turn their house into a sea of flames. Therefore, he declared that he would never hand over his son to these scoundrels. Garrick ordered his men to destroy everything around until Damien himself came out. Paul's cries for them to stop were completely ignored, but our hero made it in time. Even his own father was frightened by the strong aura surrounding him. The night students were unable to immediately assess the situation and were about to attack. But then they noticed that something was happening to their bodies. They couldn't even move. Our hero approached his father and Victor to find out if they were okay. The servant's bruised and swollen face made Damien very angry. If Victor had not been born with a strong body, he would have died from such a beating. And in that case, he would have beaten all three of them to death on the spot, so you could say they were lucky. Garrick heard talk that our hero was brave enough to challenge the Marquise. However, I am convinced that he feels very confident because he defeated the nobleman using a pathetic trick. Garrick ordered his men to break Damien's legs and force him to kneel before him. Our hero just wanted to release the accumulated mana that he had collected during cultivation training and test new destructive energy techniques. So it was quite convenient that the ideal targets came to him on their own. He will be able to try out his techniques on them at a new level. Lavender took off. The second one flew away after that, without being able to land a single blow. Having fully experienced the power of Damien Haxon, Garrick did not expect that his knight students would lose so shamefully. Victor gave him a thumbs up, meaning that everything was fine and that his master's powers were great. Our hero realized that his servant turned out to be quite interesting. Garrick realized that his master Erwin was not a victim of cheap tricks. However, he still doesn't understand why a scoundrel like Damien has these skills. But he will never know this, because our hero is not in the mood for conversation. This sight and the answers led the knight to a conclusion. He said that the man in front of him was not actually Damien Haxon. Paul and Victor were surprised by such a statement, but our hero called it nonsense. The knight believes that this is a trap set by the attack dogs to stop the Lionbloom family from prospering. And Damien is not real, most likely an imposter who was hired to defeat the young master Erwin, thereby humiliating the good name and causing harm to the Lionbloom family. Our hero called Garrick stupid, even worse than he thought. One of the student knights was so frightened by what was happening that he decided to pretend to be unconscious. Paul and Victor supported Damien, rooting for his victory. Garrick intends to fight our hero one-on-one. Damien seems skillful to him, but the knight is about to interrupt his luck. He will do this in half a step as soon as our hero enters his range. Then Garrick will cut him in half in the blink of an eye. However, as soon as his sword approached Damien, he stopped it with his sword. As expected from Lionbloom, they sent a full-fledged knight this time. Garrick decided to jump back to avoid other possible surprises. He can't believe that Damien managed to parry his blow. Assuming it was a simple coincidence, he tried to attack again. But our hero simply brushed him off, even calling him slow. Now it's his turn to lunge. The official knight barely managed to defend himself. He was completely unable to see the enemy's attack. But our hero didn't lose his composure and immediately knocked him down with a kick. Garrick's problem must be that he greatly underestimated his opponent. Instead of giving it his all, he was constantly shocked by Damien's every move. Our hero dedicated this blow to Victor. Garrick can barely stand on his feet. He continues to attribute all of Damien's hits to luck. Garrick used the ultimate technique, the mighty sword of lion speed. Our hero was not at all afraid and did not retreat. The technology is loud, of course, but that's all. Damien keeps his oath not to kill anyone in this life, but he seriously maims. Now Knight Garrick will definitely not be able to continue the battle. After all, he no longer has a hand for this. Victor is glad that his master won, but his father's emotions are mixed. After all, Damien is quite terrifying in battle. Using fire magic, Garrick managed to stop the bleeding. But when he saw the blade in front of his face, he panicked, and he began to beg for mercy, even though he didn't know who was standing in front of him. Our hero again said that he was Damien Haxon, and he should have begged for mercy earlier. He dared to mess with his family and made the ugly servant even uglier. Garrick started whining, said that he was sorry for what happened, and asked to accept his apology. However, it seems he still doesn't understand who he should apologize to. Victor and Paul came closer. They feel a wild desire to finish off this bastard. By the way, they didn't restrain their desires. Although Victor is not completely satisfied, he would like to continue. However, Damien decided that it was enough, because if they overdid it, they could die. Although he almost agreed to cut off another limb, his father intervened. Garrick again continued to apologize and beg for forgiveness, now in front of Paul. However, one apology cannot make up for everything, because if his eldest son had not been strong enough, they would have already destroyed the entire territory, and he himself would have been dragged off to the home of the Marquis's family, where he would probably have been subjected to terrible torture. Garrick was already banging his head on the ground, begging for forgiveness, and the floor felt satisfaction from such a sight. After all, victory over the knights who attacked their territory makes their family a little stronger and prouder. Damien didn't plan to kill them, because then their relationship with the Lionbloom family would completely fall apart. If he were alone, he would fight them without hesitation. But for the sake of his family, he must restrain himself. However, if you just let them go, they will definitely come for revenge soon. Agnes finally reached the mansion. She hurried, worried that something terrible would happen. Our hero realized that in this situation too, she could be useful. He told her the whole story, after which, I didn't even have to ask her. She offered to help herself. Thanks to the Haxon family, one of Yulan's officers was successfully killed. In this regard, the church can enter into an alliance with them. And in this case, their family will be able to avoid the resulting crisis. Damien bribed Agnes to do it for him. Initially, when he told her the backstory, this is exactly what he was counting on: the protection of the church. He told the knights to report this to Marquis Lionbloom. Tell them that the Haxon family is now under the protection of the church. If they try to attack their family and servants again, he will feel the wrath of the church and their paladins. The frightened knights ran away as quickly as possible with their tails between their legs. Now their family can finally breathe a sigh of relief. But Paul isn't so sure about it. He believes that they need to figure out how to proceed. A family meeting needs to be held, the main theme of which will be the feud with the Lionbloom family. Abel doesn't really understand why this is necessary, because now their family is under the protection of the church. However, the fact is that they cannot hope for full-fledged intervention from the church. The church is not deeply involved in the affairs of the nobility, and the Marquis's power does not rest entirely on their military might alone. If they wanted, they could destroy a small noble family like theirs in many ways. Right now they have two options: either pay up or enter into a protective pact with another family. But Agnes decided to offer another way out. Sir Damien Haxon could become a paladin. Our hero didn't expect her to throw away this card right now. He voiced his reluctance in front of everyone. Since Damien is unwilling, his father said that this option will not be considered. For some reason, this made Abel very angry. It was as if our hero was being indulged. After all, if he becomes a paladin, all these troubles will end. Abel suggests that his father simply give the order. Then they won't even see Damien, who always brings trouble much. After all, it all started because of him, and he is sure that Damien should pay for it entirely. However, Abel probably felt his father's anger for the first time. He felt uneasy, although he didn't move from the spot. Abel is right that Damien provoked the conflict, but the blame does not lie entirely with him. After all, the Marquis's second son had lustful intentions towards Louise. If not, he would have done something else nasty. In fact, Damien protected Louise from the plans of the Marquis's second son instead of her helpless father. Therefore, no one should condemn our hero for this. He tried hard and spoke out against those who insulted their family and paid them back according to their deserts. Damien never thought his father would take it that way. He even felt awkward, but he had to do it. Paul will take care of this problem in the future, because he doesn't want his son to decide everything on his own. The butler intervened in their conversation, asking for forgiveness for disturbing them. A man from the Gold Pixie Duchy arrived to see them. Young Master Damien had borrowed money using the family's wheat fields as collateral, and the payment date was approaching. Our hero didn't know that he had already done this. The happy family idyll didn't last long. We need to deal with the new consequences of that stupid idiot from the past life. Damien hardly remembers this man, the manager of the Western branch, Olin Demish. He came because the time had come to pay off the debt they had agreed upon. Damien didn't plan to take any large sum, but he skillfully manipulated him and persuaded him to go further. He had already cursed his past self, and why bother handing over the documents for his family's land at all? But upon learning the amount, plus interest, our hero was, to put it mildly, surprised. It was so long ago that he doesn't even remember why he took that money, but it's clear that his family definitely doesn't have that kind of money now. At this rate, his entire family will be thrown out onto the street. If he doesn't pay today, the land will be transferred to their banking organization. Olin can't do anything. Duke Gold Pixie ordered them to collect all the debts, regardless of who owed them, the nobility or the common people. He asked to bring the money, but Damien said that he was unable to prepare for the payment, after which Olin's face changed and he brazenly sat down on the sofa. He said that Damien should not have taken out the debt in the first place since he was so irresponsible. Well, in that case, Olin Demish is going to collect the debt using his own methods. He knew all along that our hero wouldn't be able to pay. He likes money, but most of all, he enjoys moments like these. He loves to watch arrogant nobles grovel before him, and he is eagerly awaiting to see what face young Mr. Haxon will show him. The mere imagination makes him shudder. While Damien deals with his guests, the family anxiously awaits news, especially the guys, but the girls peacefully drink tea and try to calm them down. Damien said that he would figure it out. Mother suggests trusting him and just waiting. However, before this, he solved problems with a sword, and fighting skills and negotiation skills are not the same thing. Father is afraid that he will start a fight here too. Overall, his guesses were not far from the truth. Olin expected that our hero would beg him, or at least simply leave defeated and humiliated. However, he did not tolerate the impudent behavior of his guard and knocked him out with one blow. The second one immediately pounced on our hero, drawing his sword. But Damien grabbed him by the neck with lightning speed, using the snakebite technique. By law, no one dares point a sword at a nobleman. It turns out that it was ordinary self-defense, nothing more. Olin was left completely unprotected, completely alone in front of the monster. He became truly scared as Damien approached. However, our hero is now ready to move on to negotiations. He asked his guest to relax his legs. Right now, unfortunately, he cannot pay him the amount he demands, but he suggested paying the debt in another way, which would certainly interest their master. It seemed like Olin didn't really have much of a choice. Of course, he agreed. The next day, Abel bitterly told his father that he was heartbroken, because justice lost to cruelty. However, he asked him to stop and just cheer up his older brother before leaving. Although Paul agreed reluctantly, he's still worried about whether Damien's plan will work, and Lady Agnes is upset that their paths are already diverging. Our hero thanked her for everything she did for him. Their investigation is coming to an end, so tomorrow they will also leave the mansion. And at parting, like a true believer, she blessed his path. And again, she wanted to remind her that if Damien changes his mind, he can come to her. But he refused without letting her finish. After that, he immediately went to the carriage. Victor would accompany him on the way. The servant has already loaded the luggage. Olin's carriage is very spacious and comfortable. In addition, he will do everything to ensure that nothing causes them inconvenience during the trip. Damien liked the mood. He was so energetic when he suggested we have lobster for lunch. Victor closed the carriage doors, as the time had already come. And then he told the coachman to get going. The carriage headed to the Gold Pixie family's house, to meet with Duke Adam Gold Pixie, owner of credit institutions. Even the gates of this house look majestic. Without a doubt, the home of one of the richest families in the entire kingdom. Their mansion can easily compare to a royal one. If the meeting goes well, Damien will not forget about Olin's help. However, he is angry with him, because our hero forced him to work more like a dog than a servant. He really hopes that Damien's plan will work and he will die. Our hero said goodbye to Victor and went to the meeting. The Duke of the Apple Kingdom, Adam Gold Pixie, has already heard about the notorious troublemaker from the Haxon family. Damien laughed it off, but he was fed up with everyone laughing at him. He had borrowed money from Adam Goldpixie's family creditors and the payment date was approaching. But now he doesn't have that kind of money, so he would like to ask if he can pay in another way. To pay off the debt, he will defeat the Lion Bloom family. The Duke was surprised, but it seemed that their new friend had already heard the news. This news is known to everyone in the kingdom. Recently, a gold mine was discovered on the border of the Lion Bloom and Gold Pixie lands, two families who have never gotten along with each other. They agreed on a duel between low-class knights to gain a monopoly on a gold mine. Of course, our hero already knows the outcome of this fight, namely, a crushing victory for the Lion Bloom family. Thanks to the acquired gold, they rapidly expanded their forces. On the other hand, the Gold Pixies lost their influence. Ultimately, if Damien helps the Duke win, he will pay off his debt and keep the Lion Bloom family in line. Adam was interested in this, because he had heard that Damien had defeated the Marquise's second son, and he destroyed a huge organization in Lentwork, and this is not just rumors. Therefore, the offer was very tempting. The Duke was just looking for a knight who would take part in the duel. Damien would be the perfect candidate, as who else could possibly take on the Lion Bloom family's eldest son? Although, of course, this still needs to be proven, because everyone recognizes him as a genius. Just as Damien was trying to convince the Duke that he could handle it, the knight Ernst Howitz intervened. He believes that one cannot trust only words, because rumors tend to be exaggerated. He is also confident that Miss Chelsea will bring the ideal candidate. Miss Chelsea has been away for a month, searching for the perfect knight to battle Michael Lionbloom. She always passed the Duke's tests perfectly, so Ernst is confident that she will not fail this time either. They all provide valid arguments. Damien isn't very happy about this, because these bastards are ruining all his fun. It is clear what the Duke's people think. Now we need to decide what to do. Our hero noticed that they were all deeply mistaken, and if they wanted to win this duel, they had to choose him. And whoever comes back with Miss Chelsea won't be as good as Damien. And if Ernst needs proof, our hero will try to block his absolute blow. If he succeeds, he will prove his worth. Ernst was offended by this because Damien is of low class and dares to underestimate him. With his master's permission, he agrees to teach this boy a lesson. Of course, he doesn't mind at all because it's getting interesting. They went out into the courtyard to the area where the knights train. Victor is in shock. All negotiations with his master end in fights, and the enemy seems strong, so the servant is a little worried. Duke Adam Goldpixie gave the order to Sir Howitz to begin. Ernst told Damien that he would forgive him if he got on his knees and started begging for mercy. But our hero shows with all his appearance that he is not afraid at all, and is a little bored standing around waiting. If so, now the Duke's knight will show him his ultimate blow. Feeling the power, Damien realized that he had angered him too much. He wants to punch a hole in his sickening face. Our hero expected nothing less from a middle-class knight. However, if you just understand where he is aiming, it won't be difficult. Damien's sword shattered from the blow. However, all this is just a planned trick. The Count was surprised, and Victor was terribly frightened. But Damien managed to withstand the blow and stay on his feet. Ernst is perplexed. He does not understand how he managed to withstand his sudden attack, as did the Count. But his knight Jael Rymich noticed something. The candidate's position definitely belongs to Damien. Victor jumped up to hug him with joy, forgetting about the wound on his chest. And Adam Goldpixie came up to congratulate him, because he actually withstood Howitz's blow. The Duke was initially full of doubts, but he turned out to be truly capable. Damien Haxon has proven his talent fantastically, as promised, and is now a candidate. Ernst Howitz tried to say something else, but the Count shut him up, asking him not to spoil his good mood. Ernst was completely confident that his attack would be successful, and Damien noticed that the Duke was treating this knight poorly. It's not that he wasn't talented, he just fought the wrong man. Because our hero's level has already exceeded average, and since only low-class knights could participate in a duel, he had to pretend. In a brief moment, use mana to block a blow and perform an act that will deceive anyone. Although the Duke looks as if he himself is pretending not to notice. He suggested that Damien had internal wounds and said that he couldn't just watch. He used his ring, a magical interdimensional tool, and he took a box from the portal to give our hero balance pills. He paid the Alchemy Academy a large sum for them. They also enhance physical abilities, like the previous supplement. Knights typically take these pills during training, but they are also effective for internal wounds. Our hero is very happy with such a gift, and the Duke is looking forward to his work. The next day, he could feel the effect of the pills. They were definitely effective. In just one night, his internal wounds were almost completely healed. But the duchy is full of good training weapons, and Damien didn't have time to look around yesterday. With him, our hero could train and move forward. Suddenly, a short guy greeted him. Low-class knight, Pabel Bermud, and his brothers. They are also going to take part in the duel. They were training outside yesterday, so they didn't get to meet Damien. If they were here, they would be the ones to teach him a lesson instead of Sir Howitz. The duel with the Lionbloom family is a major event, with the fate of the duchy at stake, so they hope Damien won't drag them down. These guys don't trust him, so they asked him to leave and not interfere with their training. Our hero was curious about how talented the low-class knights of the duchy were, and now he understands. During the training, Pabel showed the starting position, the motionless Acalanata, and his brother showed a secret move, the Rising Phoenix. Today is their 981st battle. During all this time, Pabel has never lost. His brother deftly dodged the attack. but then he rushed back at him. He expected nothing less from Pabel. He anticipated the attack and blocked it with his forehead. And then he accepted defeat and even expressed gratitude for the new knowledge. The second one also wants to fight, but Pabel preferred to rest a little. They believe that if he continues to train like this, he will show good results and will definitely be able to defeat the Lion Bloom family. They live by the motto, one for all and all for one. Our hero saw all this from the outside. His mood fell. Seeing the Duke's low-ranking knights, he realized that they would be finished in a duel. He shared his thoughts with Victor that they would most likely lose. After all, with such idiots, you can't be sure of victory. Meanwhile, the Count discusses our hero with his most valuable knight, Jael. He thinks that it is rare to encounter such a high-class knight, although the old man is not at all bothered by this. Last night, Adam invited Damien to train with him, but he preferred to do it alone. The Count didn't think that our hero would refuse. He was becoming an increasingly interesting person to him. He is interested in what Knight Jael thinks of Damien. He considers him an exceptional young man. He used his mana in a split second and blocked Howitz's attack. Not everyone can do that. However, since only 3 people participate in the duel, the victory is counted to the side that wins 2 rounds. It won't matter if Damien is the only one who performs well. The other knights also need to succeed, and their training is overseen by a middle-class knight, Sir Vincenzo. Therefore, Jael believes that there is nothing to worry about. But our hero considers this a huge problem that he did not foresee. Not only are they stupid, but they are also in terrible physical shape, and they only boast about their skills, which they don't have. With this level of skill, there is no doubt that they will lose, so Damien will have to intervene. If he wants to get rid of the debt, he'll have to do something about these idiots. Our hero suggested that they spar. Pabel decided that Damien had thrown down the gauntlet after seeing them in action, so the first one volunteered, but our hero had in mind a sparring match against all 3 of them at once. He suggested that they attack him simultaneously. These low-ranking knights decided that they were facing an arrogant fool. Although it goes against the knight's code, he greatly angered them with his prejudiced attitude. However, before they even noticed, they found themselves lying on the floor. We didn't even have time to understand how it all happened, because Damien is very fast. Pabel came to the creation first and saw the brothers nearby. Our hero called him pathetic as he thought. Pabel remembers how they attacked him together, but after that, everything is a blur. He begins to remember that Damien easily dodged all the fists, after which he quickly knocked out his brothers and then set his sights on Pabel himself. He tried his best to reach the target, but Damien brushed him aside like a mosquito. Experiencing severe pain, he immediately lost consciousness. He couldn't even imagine that our hero, who had a certain fame, would be so strong. Monster, take down 3 without even breaking a sweat. Afterwards, Damien asked who trained these idiots. Pabel said that their teacher was Sir Sebastian Vincenzo, a knight of the middle class. Our hero would suggest that they stop training under his command, but he does not want to ignite a conflict. So he told them to come back after training with Vincenzo. From that day on, they would spar with Damien every day. Pabel suggested that if Sir Vincenzo saw bruises on them, he would suspect something was wrong. But our hero promised that no matter how hard he hit them, there wouldn't be a scratch left on their bodies. And really, if you think about it, even after he just beat them up, they are physically fine. This is possible because our hero had previously studied a special way of beating people. Once upon a time, there lived a man who wandered the continent and retrained criminals. He was known as a character transformer. His method was simple. He would beat people for an hour straight, and if that didn't work, he would double the duration. According to legend, the longest time he beat a person was 512 hours. During this process, the character transformer began to feel pity for his bloodied victims. Then he thought about how to beat a person without endangering his life, and so he created the technique of the invisible strike. This is what Damien used on those idiots, this secret art that causes severe pain but leaves no marks. He hoped that now they realized how weak and useless they were. But Damien has a whole month before the duel, during which time he will turn them into useful insects. The guys were surprised by this. It's time for them all to get back to training now. But the Duke's assistant came running. For some reason, he was looking for Damien. Adam Goldpixie calls him to his office. The Duke's daughter, Lady Chelsea Goldpixie, has returned home. Ernst is glad that she returned safe and sound. A month passed, and she found a knight worthy of fighting in a duel. This is the low-class knight Guillermo Blackwing. Others had heard of him as a famous mercenary. He participated in the War of the Kingdom of Aclaypan and killed almost all the low-class knights. Rumor has it that no low-class person can defeat him. Guillermo earned his title during the war through brutal acts that only a wild beast could commit. He swore allegiance to Chelsea and also promised to take part in the duel. She is confident that he will definitely be able to defeat Michael Lionbloom. The other knights also believe that this is true. In their opinion, Guillermo has already achieved perfection. This is good news, but the Duke is having a difficult time making a decision. He still hasn't presented his candidate to Chelsea. The first candidate for the duel, Sir Damien Haxon. She didn't immediately understand what exactly her father meant. After all, she asked him to wait for her, although he didn't say that he would. Then she suggested simply changing the representative. She thinks that there is nothing to think about here, since she herself has never heard of Damien. In her opinion, it is obvious that Sir Guillermo should be chosen, instead of some unknown knight. Of course, Sir Guillermo is a renowned knight, but Sir Damien is strong enough to block Howitz's ultimate blow. Chelsea believes her father simply doesn't want to acknowledge her skills, and this is the perfect opportunity to turn a blind eye to them again. She continued to point out his disrespect for her, but Adam immediately shut her mouth. She asked for forgiveness, citing fatigue from her journey. Our hero noticed that they held a grudge against each other. The Duke dismissed his daughter, saying that he would first discuss the matter with others. Hearing this, Guillermo laughed out loud. After all, why come to a common decision through conversations if you can decide differently? Jael tensed up at such rude and disrespectful behavior. However, in some ways he is right. They can fight, and the winner will go to the duel. Chelsea asked him not to interfere and wanted to shut him up. But the Duke liked the idea too. The strongest must go to the duel, that is true. But Damien said that it is not necessary to resort to fighting. He extended his hand to his opponent, also wanting to check something. Our hero suggested deciding who is stronger here and now. Seeing a small guy in front of him, Guillermo apologized in advance that he could tear off his arm. But then Damien will be gentler and will stop only at the dislocated shoulder. This provoked Guillermo, and he immediately grabbed his opponent's arm. However, immediately his feet left the ground. Everyone was very surprised that Damien had knocked out the famous mercenary with such ease. Jael, who was knowledgeable in martial arts, could see how amazing everything was. Guillermo Blackwing was the first to try to grab Damien Haxon's arm. However, Damien used Guillermo's strength against him and threw him to the floor. Jael saw in our hero not only strength but also ability. However, this made Guillermo very angry. No one dared to humiliate him like that in front of everyone. The mercenary turned out to be much stronger than our hero assumed, because he really tried to dislocate his shoulder. The enraged beast immediately reached for the weapon. He promised to tear our hero apart right here. Chelsea tried to calm him down, but he completely ignored her words. Then Jael intervened, stopping the madman without taking a single step. It wasn't that he was defending Damien. It was just that no one had the right to brandish a weapon in the presence of the Count. Jael's aura causes very strong pressure. He did not rise to the highest class through empty merits. He would only turn a blind eye to such a thing once, taking into account the honor of Lady Chelsea. However, it is important to keep in mind that there will be no second chance. When Jael laid down his arms, Guillermo fell to his knees, exhausted. There was a slight commotion. It would be better if Sir Damien retained his position as candidate. Ernst is convinced that it was an unfair fight. He excused Sir Guillermo by the loss of strength caused by the trip. Besides, he is a knight who uses weapons. He cannot be judged in a fistfight. Chelsea took up the idea, trying to force an official duel between her knight and Damien. The Duke asked her to stop insisting, but she didn't listen and continued. Then Adam got angry and asked her to stop bragging about her incompetence. Then she got scared and suddenly shut up, and also apologized for her rudeness. Our hero stopped their argument. He asked the Duke's permission to accept the offer of a duel. Adam Goldpixie was curious, so he didn't interfere. Victor doesn't understand why his master is constantly asking for trouble. Our hero asked not to bother him with questions. He has his own reasons for everything. On the street, they came across the forge that the Duke had mentioned earlier. Since Damien's sword was broken in the fight against Sir Howitz, the Duke asked the blacksmith for a new one. Our hero could have defeated a scoundrel like Guillermo with a simple wooden sword, but there is no reason to reject the Duke's kindness. The blacksmith had been warned of Damien's arrival, so there were no problems. He led them to the weapons. Even Victor, who had nothing to do with fighting, became interested in seeing the arsenal. All the weapons looked simply amazing, and Victor might find something for himself too. Our hero saw a very familiar sword among all the others. It was custom made for a knight who once worked for a duke. Due to an urgent matter, he had to leave his service in a hurry before the work was completed, so the sword remained lying there. That knight gave up a single ringing steel to create the ball. The shape of this sword is similar to any weapon of the master called the musical swordsman. The blacksmith was surprised that Damien chose him, despite the fact that he knew what the single ringing steel was. Unlike regular rare metals that increase mana, the one ringing steel has a unique temperament that pushes out mana and causes waves. The knight who ordered it called this sword the Sword of 1,000 Li. Li is a unit of distance measurement, equivalent in modern times to 500 meters. Then a girl dressed as a maid approached them. Make sure Damien finds a weapon to his liking. Her name is Rebecca and she serves Lady Chelsea. Her lady has requested a meeting with Damien if he would be willing to give her some of his time. Our hero is not sure that he has anything to discuss with her, but the maid continued to persuade and try to appease him. Although Rebecca speaks without touching the essence, Damien would like to make sure of something, so he decided to agree. He asked the maid to take him to her mistress. They came to a restaurant run by Lady Chelsea herself. Reservations are required here, and only those in the know can visit. Today, the entire restaurant is empty so that Damien can visit it. She walked him to the door and stopped, saying that Chelsea was waiting for him inside. He looked inside, wondering what she would offer him, but then I felt a familiar aroma. The girl poured wine, saying that our hero arrived a little late, after which she asked him to sit down quickly and be more patient. Why don't they just talk while they wait for their food? Damien didn't agree because he doesn't like to waste time. If so, then she has no choice. Chelsea has only one request. She wants our hero to step back from his position as a representative. Considering that if Guillermo takes up his axe, then someone like Damien is nothing in comparison. She said that she was asking for this because she wanted to preserve his strength while preparing for the duel with the Marquis's family. After all, it would be very unpleasant if our hero gets injured due to a senseless fight. If Damien agrees, Lady Chelsea will fulfill all his wishes, but she doesn't know what he wants. It seems to her that the village aristocrats obviously want money, fame, and such things. Judges others thoughtlessly, quite arrogant. The Duke will be able to give more, but she believes it will be better to attract the goodwill of the future Duchess in advance. Looking at the hourglass, she brings her speech to an end. As soon as the last grain of sand fell, Lady Chelsea ordered Damien to go to her father and resign his position. Our hero smiled maliciously and refused. Lady Chelsea did not expect this at all because everything was not supposed to go this way. She was surprised that Damien was not affected by the enchanting aroma. An enchanting scent, it is a type of dark magic, inspiring false affection to manipulate people. Having retained the knowledge of dark magic from his past life, Damien sensed it the moment he entered the room. Usually this concentration is enough to turn any person into a slave within an hour, but the power of greedy Damien completely absorbed her, although he decided to play along and find out what went wrong. Lady Chelsea immediately began to make excuses and look for words to get out of it. Not needing her help, Damien turned around and left, saying that she could not fulfill his wishes. She wonders what kind of impossible wish it is. And our hero replied that this was happiness for his family. He asked to tell Guillermo to prepare well for the duel. Family must be very important to our hero. So Lady Chelsea had another idea. If Damien doesn't refuse, she will send people to them, which will completely destroy the Viscountcy of Haxon. Our hero became furious at these words, and Lady Chelsea never thought that a village nobleman would dare raise his hand against her. The knights immediately came running to the noise, and when they opened the door, they saw this. They immediately rushed to the defense of the future Duchess. But Damien let her go and turned his attention to them. He only slightly cut the knights' necks, not killing them, but showing his superiority. At parting, he said that the cut was not deep, but let them apply a potion to it so as not to die. He has an overwhelming urge to slit Lady Chelsea's throat right now, but he restrains himself. This would be too merciful a punishment for her. However, he will not forget what happened this evening, and very soon she will face terrible consequences. The girl remained sitting in horror at what had happened. Her knights bleed to death while sitting on their knees. Rebecca hurried into the room. She ran up to Lady Chelsea to see if she was okay. This bastard dared to humiliate her. She swore that she would kill Damien. She quickly called Mustang Fury into the room. The man arrived as soon as she called him. Lady Chelsea demanded an explanation for Damien's failure to be affected by the enchanting scent. This left her in a terrible situation. Sir Guillermo went to the tavern because he needed to let off steam after what happened during the day. The duel is tomorrow, and this psycho is drinking. But despite this, Mustang is confident that he can win because Guillermo is Yulan's masterpiece. Their organization collaborates with Chelsea to help them gain power over the duchy. And if Mustang doesn't keep his word, she will finish him off first. They discussed all this right by the window. We just didn't expect that there could be extra ears on such a floor. After this, our hero and Victor returned to the forge. Damien never thought that he would meet Yulan here again. These fucking dark magicians. As expected, Chelsea Gold Pixie is connected to them. This means that the energy that he felt from Guillermo is also dark magic. Instead of looking for the Duke and explaining the situation to him, it would probably be better to show him everything. And now the time has come for the duel to begin between Guillermo and Damien. Pabel and his brothers stand wondering who will win. Considering their reputation, there is no doubt that they would name Guillermo. Then they will be free from this demonic Damien. They still hold a grudge for the beatings under the guise of training, being confident that our hero enjoyed the process. Pabel supported the brothers' desire for Damien to lose, but in reality, he really wants him to win. And Ernst is watching closely. Being on Chelsea's side, he also wants our hero to lose. Guillermo is quite confident in himself. He is surprised that Damien did not run away before the fight, which impresses him. But our hero completely ignores the enemy's chatter and behaves calmly. The Duke arrived a little late and announced that, as promised, the winner would take the place of the representative, and also hopes that everyone will accept the outcome with dignity. Although Lady Chelsea is completely confident of her knight's victory, Adam Gold Pixie raised his handkerchief to announce the start of the duel. Guillermo immediately took out his weapon and confidently walked forward. He intends to show our hero why he is called a wild beast. As the axe approached Damien's head, he prepared to parry the blow. An amazing sword that he took from the forge will help him with this. When this sword releases mana, it resembles a whirlwind or a strong wind, depending on the wielder. This made Lady Chelsea and Rebecca worry, but the Duke and Jael appreciated the mastery of such an unusual technique. Guillermo is furious. He doesn't understand where our hero got such strange tricks from. The streams released by this sword can have either a large or a small area, which attack like projectiles from a distance, the force of which is not inferior to a good blow. Once Guillermo's anger had subsided, our hero moved on to the next part of his plan. He created a vibration that made his opponent feel very sick. He then vomited a large amount of black liquid, which could only mean one thing. The Duke didn't understand right away, but his faithful knight understood perfectly well what this meant. Lady Chelsea did not expect this turn of events at all. It could seriously disrupt her plans. Our hero revealed Guillermo's true nature. All this time, he was a fake knight. All the people watching the duel are shocked by what they see. Guillermo enhanced his physical abilities with dark magic. The servants don't understand how this could have happened. If the church finds out about this, then their whole family will be in big trouble. Mr. Damien already knew about his true nature and asked for forgiveness for not telling him earlier. But the reason he couldn't tell was because he wanted to find out who the real criminal was. Adam Goldpixie was a little scared that there were criminals in his house. Our hero informed him that there were dark magicians who had infiltrated their duchy, and the person who is connected with them is Lady Chelsea. She was horrified by this revelation. I tried to convince my father that I had nothing to do with it. However, he guessed, but did not want to believe it. Now he cannot refute what is right before his eyes. The Duke ordered Chelsea and all those involved to be imprisoned and their true identities discovered. Luckily, capturing Guillermo will now be easier. But Lady Chelsea was not going to give up. She ordered her people to protect her. A fight broke out between her knights and the guards. So the Duke decided to send his best warrior to make sure everything ended quickly. No one present has a chance against jail. However, Lady Chelsea's guards decided to stand to the last. But having felt such a high level, they realized that they had nothing to oppose. They promised to at least hold everyone here for a little while until their mistress found a way to escape. Seeing the disobedience, Jael decided to draw his sword. Chelsea itself almost came under his blow. She raised her head and saw that her guard was still standing. But then they fell apart in half right before her eyes. At that moment, she felt a wild horror. There is no way she can hide from Jael. Seeing Ernst, she began to beg him for help. He has known her since childhood and has warm feelings for her. Therefore, he could not stand aside and blocked Jael's path. As a knight of the middle class, Ernst Howitz contributed significantly to the growth of the ducal court, and Adam Goldpixie values him highly. However, if he defends Lady Chelsea, Jael will execute him on the spot. It was a very difficult decision for Ernst, but he cannot resist arrest, given that the lady actually committed a crime. As she was being taken away, she did not stop trying to shout to her father, but the Duke shut her mouth, calling her a worthless creature. Because of her actions, the whole family may face a terrible disaster. Adam emphasized that bringing her to this family was the biggest mistake of his life. Out of fear, she did not give up trying to prove her innocence. But on the Duke's orders, the guard shut her mouth and led her on. After that, her hatred stopped hiding. She used to hate her father very much, but now Damien Haxon has also become her favorite. For several days, the guards were interrogated in the dungeon, given breaks to rest from the torture. They told them that when they smelled a certain scent, they simply fell in love with Lady Chelsea. Jael is smart enough to understand what is being discussed. As expected, the Duke's daughter expanded her influence at court with the help of dark magicians. However, he does not understand why she did this. At this time, Chelsea herself is in captivity. She is sure that she found herself in this situation because of her father. She just wanted to be recognized, for her father to acknowledge her as his daughter. That's all she ever wanted. But he always brushed her off, always looked at her with cold eyes. Because of this, she made a mistake and achieved recognition with the help of Yulan. After all, this organization promised her what she wanted. However, due to the Duke's attitude, her desire for recognition grew into hatred and a desire to take her father's place. But she can't let it end like this. It doesn't matter how humiliated she is now, the main thing is to simply survive, and then figure out how to live on. Our hero, having exposed the traitors, did not touch this story in any other way. He continued to train and prepare for the duel. On his way back, he met Victor, who reported that the Duke was waiting for him in his office. When Damien came to him, he suggested that they sit down and drink wine together. Although the Duke is one of the richest men, the wine on his table is not particularly expensive, but it is his favorite. The main thing is not how much it costs, but how great it tastes. Adam suggested Damien try an angel's cheese from the Blanco region, which pairs beautifully with wine. As for Chelsea, they decided to accept the order's help. Unexpectedly, our hero thought that the Duke would decide to conduct his own investigation. He's ashamed, especially after Damien's help, but they lost all the dark mages. The Duke's men captured all of Chelsea's close aides, but none of them were dark mages. At this moment, our hero regretted not having intervened. In view of the current situation, in order to avoid misunderstandings with the order, Adam decided to leave the pursuit to them. And Chelsea herself did not say a word. Despite the cruel torture, she is strong. She wasn't always like this. It must be because of something from the past. In fact, Chelsea's mother was a simple peasant woman from the provinces. In his youth, the Duke went hunting with knights and met her by chance. Soon after this, she became pregnant, and he himself did not believe at first that it could be due to one mistake. Later, he felt ashamed that such a commoner carried his blood. That's why the Duke threw them out when they came to him. Some time passed after that story. Adam wondered what had happened to the child he had abandoned. He ordered his men to investigate and learned that her mother had died of the plague, and the child survived alone. So he took her to the duchy. Looking back, he realizes that this act was not like him. But maybe he did it because Chelsea is still his family. Maybe this is what Chelsea wanted, to become a real family. Thinking over everything that happened, the Duke realizes that most likely his daughter did this to get his approval. After all, she could have lived the ordinary life of an aristocrat. The Duke felt that he was drunk and was becoming very talkative. The butler ran into his office. Something terrible happened. The butler reported that Lady Chelsea had hanged herself. The guards found her hanging in her cell, after which the Duke himself saw it. A few days later, Victor scolded his master for his behavior, because he had asked Damien many times to separate his underwear when he sent it to the wash. I don't give a damn about the person who has to clean it all up. As he passed the Duke's office, Damien noticed him standing by the window. It's been 4 days since Chelsea Goldpixie's death. Given the circumstances, her death was ruled a suicide. The interrogations of those who were associated with her were also completed. Because she had endangered her family, her grave was not suitable for a lady of noble birth and was arranged in a modest and ignoble manner. It seemed that the danger that had loomed over the Duke's house of Gold Pixie had passed for the moment. However, Damien has heard about Yulan and thinks that nothing is over. Victor realized that his master was not listening at all. But our hero cleverly fit into the dialogue. This terrible grief also befell Ernst Howitz. He took leave and started drinking. One such evening, he was drunk and walking down the street from the bar and sat down in an alley. He remembers how she wove that wreath for her father and wanted him to like it. She asked him, but he didn't know. He had never received flowers. Her mother always told her that flowers have magic that brings joy to people. The flowers from which she wove this wreath were blooming in the field. Father will probably be happy to see them too. Ernst is grief-stricken and blames himself for the weakness that prevented him from protecting his lady. He regrets that he laid down his arms and did not fight to the death. His drunken torment was interrupted by Rebecca, who seemed to have been looking for him for a long time. However, how dare she show her face, since it was because of her that Lady Chelsea died. A filthy dark witch who conspires with demons. Ernst intended to kill her in this very alley, to strangle her right then and there. But Rebecca begged to listen to her for at least a minute and help avenge her mistress. The girl said that Lady Chelsea's death was not actually a suicide, although the duchy said so. Rebecca deceived Ernst, saying that the lady died due to the torture. Hearing this, Ernst was completely confused, after which he let go of her neck. However, to make such statements, one must have irrefutable evidence. The lady was not so weak as to take her own life. Moreover, she heard it from those who took her body. It bore marks of torture that no one could bear. They were all over her body. They said that anyone would have died from such wounds. Rebecca tries to prove to him that the Duke probably hid his shame and staged her death as a suicide. And it turned out to be easy, because the Duke that Ernst knows is definitely capable of this. It was true that Rebecca approached her with a purpose, but Chelsea treated her warmly, like a real sister. That's why she can't let it go so easily. She will take revenge on the ducal family for what they did to her. And for this, she needs the help of Mr. Ernst. This whole conversation was meant to wait for the enchanting aroma to take effect. That's it. Now he has become Rebecca's obedient puppet. Having received his first order, he set out to carry it out. Mustafa emerged from the shadows, pleased that everything had worked out as they had planned, as he had been worried about whether the scent would work on someone of the middle class. Even the strong have weaknesses in their hearts, and when they have this weakness, they are more easily swayed by charms. In Ernst Howitz's case, his weakness was Chelsea Gold Pixie. Rebecca finds it funny that this idiot doesn't even know who really killed Chelsea. If I had known that Yulan organized her death, I would have gone crazy. Now they want to take on Damien Haxon instead of sitting and doing nothing. However, they confirmed through a cult spy that it was he who killed Egido. Moreover, he interfered with the great matter that was entrusted to him, which makes his act even more unforgivable. They are sure that Damien still doesn't know who they really are, doesn't know that he returned from the future. Even in the Duke's house, they must think they have disappeared and let their guard down. So Mustafa and Rebecca are going to take this chance and kill our hero no matter what. During this time, he trains at the house of Duke Adam Gold Pixie. Someone is trying to sneak up on him and attack him. They failed to do this unnoticed, although even magic is not needed to detect them. All 3 wooden swords hit the floor as Damien managed to jump up. He was so fast that he managed to get behind the enemy without even noticing. Our hero has won again, and Pabel and his brothers suffer defeat after defeat again and again. Every night, Damien beats them without explaining anything and without giving them a chance to win. So far, the guys don't really understand why this is necessary. Moreover, our hero does not forget to say out loud how pathetic they are. Their task was to sneak up and strike just once, but they failed to even do that. Pabel prays that today's sparring ends here because he's about to fall apart. Hearing Damien say goodbye to them for today, he let out a sigh. Throughout the entire evening, he tormented them greatly, beat them from all sides and drove them. And being confident that he would beat them half to death again, the end of the training brought a lot of joy. The duel with the Marquise's house will take place in 2 days, so no more sparring. Damien asked them to use their remaining 2 days to reflect on what he had taught them. However, all this time our hero was simply beating up the guys, so they don't know what to think about. Our hero didn't expect that any of them would understand. The reason he sparred with them was not just for physical training, there was another reason. But Pabel pleasantly surprised Damien. It seemed that one of them might have understood after all. Our hero was so carried away that he is now looking forward to this fight. A couple of days later, they set out into the deciduous plains. The Marquise and the Duke set up 2 camps located close to each other. Lionbloom came with a well-trained army. Not only in terms of equipment, but the individual skills are also impressive. That idiot Lionbloom may not understand anything else, but he trains soldiers well. A couple of days later, Duke Adam Goldpixie arrived in the leafy plains with his knights. He was a little late. Marquise Holland Lionbloom had already set up camp and arrived with his well-trained army. Not only in terms of equipment, but also the individual skills are impressive. That idiot Lionbloom may not understand anything else, but he trains soldiers well. An envoy from the Marquise has arrived to them. They propose a meeting of representatives before the duel. There is quite a lot of noise in the opponent's camp. Holland is trying to wake up his eldest son. He sleeps quite soundly, but they need to greet the Duke's side. Finally, Michael woke up. The Marquis even thought that he had managed to wake him up, but he complained that he was making a loud noise when the other person was sleeping, after which he went back to sleep. Holland tried to explain how important his role was in this fight, and then he gave in. He would go and deal with Damien himself, but at the mention of this name, Michael stood up. He is always sleeping, so he slept through the news that Damien Haxon had been chosen as the Duke's representative. For some reason, this news inspired Michael so much that he even lost the desire to sleep. They arrived late to the meeting, although they themselves had offered it, which the Duke assessed as a lack of basic manners. But there is no reason to be angry about it. It seems that Adam and Holland's relationship is hypocritical and tense. The Marquis greeted Lord Yahello. They had not seen each other for a long time. He constantly tries to lure him over to his side, but the knight is loyal to his Duke. After Marquis noticed Damien Haxon, he has a personal score to settle with him. Because our hero attacked his son and crippled a valuable knight, he will definitely take revenge on him as soon as he gets the chance. However, standing nearby, Holland feels a strange sense of unease. He can't believe that he, a high-ranking aristocrat, actually feels tension next to this low-born non-entity. Or perhaps it's because of the potential that lies within it. Damien is probably even capable of matching Michael. The Marquis' eldest son himself came out to them and looked at our hero with pleasure. He felt that their fight would be interesting, and out of impatience, he immediately grabbed his weapon. But it's too early for a fight. His father stopped him. He just needed to wait a little while before the official duel. In fact, Michael himself grabbed the weapon at the sight of Damien without even realizing it. Yahello made a remark because he dared to draw his sword in front of His Grace the Duke. Threatening a nobleman with a sword is considered a serious crime. Holland tried to clear up the misunderstanding, but he himself understands that his son reacted involuntarily. Almost the same as when meeting a wild animal. Adam Goldpixie saw an opportunity in this situation, so this time he decided to forgive the Lionbloom family. This made the Marquis feel uncomfortable, because this cunning old man would never back down so easily. In exchange for leniency, Adam wanted to add a few additional conditions to the reward for the duel. Of course, these conditions will be beneficial to him. Gritting his teeth, Holland accepted these conditions. However, they apparently did not suit him very well, and he even became angry. At this point, their greeting ended. The Marquis took his son, his people, and went back to the camp. Our hero liked Adam, and cleverly used this moment to insert his conditions. However, the Duke did not understand why Michael suddenly pointed his sword at Damien. Our hero pretended that he himself didn't know, but the duel would be interesting. Having a wealth of experience, he understands that at this age he has already demonstrated a sixth sense. On the way back, Holland asked his son why he had put their entire home in danger. He saw Damien's gaze, who already knew that Michael was going to pull out his sword, and still smiled calmly. He has never met an opponent like him. Our hero can really fight him on equal terms. The Marquis saw how his son's eyes, bored due to the lack of worthy opponents, changed. Only now did it dawn on Michael that it was because of him that they found themselves in unpleasant circumstances. There's nothing he can do about it at the moment. But to fix this, the Lionbloom family must win the duel. After some time, the knights of the two families stood against each other. The first fight begins. The referee asks the participants to go to the center. Since this is the first duel, seizing the initiative is very important. The Duke asked Damien's opinion on who to send first, but Sebastian Vincenzo wanted to do it. After all, training knights to duel is his responsibility, so he would like to be the first to make an offer. Sebastian believes that he is more competent than Damien to recommend a suitable fighter. So our hero saw this middle-class knight who trained those fools. It's clear from one glance that he's wary that Damien might steal his credit. There's nothing to be done. It's better to agree that this is a good offer. Therefore, our hero gave Sebastian the right to choose a knight for the first duel. So, from Duke Goldpixie, the knight of the first duel, Fabian Vincenzo. He intends to win this duel magnificently and regain his lordship's favor. The Duke has heard that the talent of Sir Vincenzo's son is exceptional, so he hopes for victory. From the Lionbloom family, the knight of the first duel, Roland. Fabian introduced himself to his rival as a member of the family of the Viscountcy of Vincenzo. Afterwards, he asked him to state his name. Roland came out against him, without a last name, which means he is a peasant. This gave Fabian self-confidence, and perhaps he became arrogant. After all, how dare an ordinary peasant try to fight him, who had mastered the secret techniques of the Vincenzo family? In this duel, a member of the Viscount's family decided to show the peasant his place and the difference in classes. Sir Fabian strikes the first blow, but the peasant dodges it without any problem. Also, the subsequent attacks, Roland not only dodges, but also easily repels them. At the same time, mocking everything Fabian had said earlier. Junior Vincenzo is out of his mind, but he is putting in more effort than the dirty peasant. But as soon as Roland drew his sword, the duel was over. Fabian only saw his hand fly off to the side. There was too much pathos in the beginning, which will make him feel even more ashamed. Sebastian was horrified to see his son lose his arm. The difference in classes is nonsense, Roland proved that to him. The Lionbloom family won the first duel, and Goldpixie lost shamefully. Fabian was given first aid and carried away on a stretcher, accompanied by Sebastian. Damien expected this outcome because, in his opinion, the son of Viscount Vincenzo was too weak. And the Duke is very dissatisfied, although he does not blame Fabian himself, because he had a strong opponent against him. And the talk was only about winning the battle. It was possible not to cut off the hand. Adam suggested that Damien join the fight now since they had already lost one. However, if he comes out now and wins, and Michael shows up in the last fight, then there will be no one left who can fight him. But our hero already knows who will join the second battle. Damien informed Pabel of his exit. He just needs to remember training with him, and then he will definitely win. Since our hero recommends him, the Duke allows it. But he is not sure because Pabel was never someone outstanding. But Damien asked him not to worry, because he himself had given him special training just for this moment. And that's why I'm sure that Pabel will definitely win. Thus from Gold Pixie, the night of the second duel, Pabel Bermont. He went out because he had no choice, but now he doesn't know what to do. Against him, from the Lionbloom family, came Huey Celestian. He thought that Damien would go against him, and therefore he was very disappointed. Well, what can I do? I'll just have to finish the fight quickly and win. Pabel didn't even have time to think about his battle strategy, and the sword had almost reached his neck. However, he managed to deftly block the attack and jump away from it. The enemy was taken aback by the surprise. He didn't expect that this weakling would be able to block his blow. The enemy turned out to be better than he initially thought. Although Pabel himself still doesn't understand what happened, Huey didn't waste any time and immediately rushed into the attack again. But Pabel dodged his sword again. From the impact itself and from the way it swept across the ground, thick dust rose up. It seemed like a good chance for Huey to attack unnoticed. But Pabel blocked his strike again. It was an attack that came from a blind spot. But this weakling keeps blocking and dodging. Pabel is very surprised because he himself understands that he is not that cool. However, he understood why Damien was so confident of his victory. After all, the combat fencing he used in his training was the signature style of the Lionbloom house, the art of the great lion sword. After being beaten repeatedly by this style, Pabel's body instinctively learned to block. And now he will probably be able to block punches in this style even with his eyes closed. Also, Huey uses the same sword style, but slower. So thanks to Damien, Pabel was able to see a new level. Today, he has surpassed himself, and his sword will pierce the heavens. Pabel won the second duel and didn't even cut off anyone's limbs. The Duke is happy, including from surprise. He did not expect to see this. Just like Marcus Lionbloom, he was one of the best low-ranking knights. Each of them won one victory. Now they have a draw. The next duel will show who won. Huey fell to his knees before Holland, asking him to kill him. But he is not angry. The knight did everything he could. It's just that the other side turned out to be stronger. Besides, the Marquis is confident that victory is still theirs, because the next fight will involve Michael, the genius. Holland ordered Huey to go back and rest. Although it's strange, because he is 2 levels stronger than the Knight of the Ducal House, or even more. But during the fight, it seemed that all his attacks were predicted. The Great Lion Sword School is taught only in the Marquise's house and cannot be leaked. Michael Lionbloom is trembling with anticipation. He had never felt such delight in his life. Found someone who is completely just like him. Therefore, he will definitely win and bring victory to his father. The Marquis sent him and is sincerely glad that he will finally be able to enjoy the fight. The first time Michael received fencing lessons from his father, he was so impressed that I was completely overwhelmed by these emotions. He was filled with anticipation, wondering how many powerful warriors there were in the world. However, as time went on, his expectations and interest began to quickly fade, even when Michael fought against knights whose strength was widely rumored. In reality, they turned out to be nothing special, and victory became something ordinary. In the end, Michael even threw down his sword. He was overcome by melancholy due to the lack of worthy opponents. But today, Michael met our hero. His gaze ignited a new spark in him. This is exactly what the bored genius had been waiting for. An opponent of equal strength who can fight face to face. However, our hero does not consider Michael his equal. The Marquis's son was the first to launch an attack. All he wants is for Damien not to disappoint him. Michael is very fast. In an instant, he almost got our hero. But Damien wasn't far behind. At the last moment, he dodged and even managed to knock away his opponent's hand. After which, he immediately delivered a counter kick with his foot, which threw Michael a decent distance away. He quickly closed the distance and continued attacking Damien. But his attack was easily blocked. As expected, Michael's eyes did not deceive him. His opponent is truly the best. Michael used a destructive technique similar to a large wave. To block such an attack, you need to be very strong. Of course, our hero succeeded. But Michael was tired of Damien avoiding his blows and still didn't draw his sword. Asking our hero to entertain him even more, he immediately went on the next attack. Then Damien reached for his sword. Confident that Michael doesn't stand a chance, his sword will touch the enemy first. Thus he cut through not only the enemy, but also his weapon. Michael's head flew quite high, after which she collapsed to the ground behind our hero. And the open eyes looked at him for the last time, after which this world collapsed. Michael, seeing all this, fell to his knees. His father doesn't understand what he's doing and why he doesn't draw his sword. And Michael doesn't understand what's happening. He was sure that he was killed. Standing in front of him, Damien asked why he was sitting there. Michael no longer considers himself our hero's equal, and he doesn't understand what kind of illusion just happened. Before the fight had even begun, he admitted defeat, winning the final duel for Gold Pixie. In the evening, they held a party for the participants to drink their fill and enjoy themselves. There will be enough wine and meat for all the knights, because the more people at the celebration, the more fun it is. The Lion Bloom people were also having fun, which greatly irritated the Marquise. Since everything was settled, the Duke suggested forgetting about everything and just enjoying the holiday. He poured Holland some wine into a glass so that he could drink it with the others. After all, as the winner, he will pour him the first one. However, Holland cannot believe that Michael surrendered without even drawing his sword, although he doesn't know whether to consider this a failure or not. But Damien is not particularly happy that Adam invited people from the Marquise's house. At first glance, he appears hospitable and generous. But it is obvious that this banquet was arranged to laugh at the defeated Marquise. In any case, our hero achieved his original goal. With that duel, he brought victory to the Duke's house and made Lion Bloom think twice before getting involved with the Haxons again. There is only one unresolved question left. Damien's thoughts were interrupted by Michael, who asked permission to sit next to him. He was already a little tipsy and started telling us how much he respected our hero. After all his life, Michael thought that he would never meet his equal. But Damien is even more magnificent. This is surprising to our hero, considering how he treated his younger brother. Michael shared that he himself did not understand what happened. But be that as it may, he felt it, even without crossing swords. Michael has a super sense that surpasses human ones. He fought Damien in the mental space of his own consciousness. Thus, he was able to understand that before him was a being superior to him, the true scale of which cannot be measured. And I experienced true fear. It was this instinct that saved him, because in a real battle, the loss of an arm would have been the least of his troubles. Michael wanted to become stronger again. The world turned out to be much bigger than he thought. Damien decided to give him advice, because the world is truly vast and his talent is extraordinary, but not unique. Within the Empire, our hero can name at least 3 people whose talent surpasses Michael's. So don't get cocky and arrogant. Don't think that you've already become the greatest. Damien says this based on his own experience, because in fact, he also once thought he was the best, until he was defeated by one man. Michael wondered if Sir Damien thought differently. But our hero is, of course, sure that he is the best, because his interlocutor just said so himself. And in his advice, he of course meant that one should not rest until one becomes as strong as Damien himself. Michael promised to remember these words. Adam Gold Pixie noticed that these guys quickly became friends. Friendship between young men is always wonderful. However, Damien is interested in why the old men came to them. The conversation between the Count and the Marquis ended, so he came to find them. Before the duel, they agreed that they would receive access to the Marquis' treasury as a reward for victory. But Holland was stingy and didn't want to agree, so we had to negotiate differently. The Marquis cannot forgive Damien for what he did to Erwin, but given the circumstances, he will ignore it for now. Therefore, first of all, he would like to apologize to Damien Hexen for setting the knights on him to show his military might. But nevertheless, he cannot open the treasury to an outsider. A weak apology and a conveniently omitted question with Erwin. But as an apology and reward for the fight, Holland decided to give Damien something. This artifact, a ring imbued with spatial magic, was created in the White Tower and can store up to 100 kilograms. Something like a spatial artifact is worth no less than a small castle. Our hero is annoyed that this is different from the original promise, but with such a valuable item, it can be put up with. He quickly snatched it from the box and thanked the Marquis. In addition, the Marquis's house has many excellent weapons that Damien can choose for himself if necessary. The offer is good, because they are the best knightly family in the kingdom, and they certainly have a lot of good weapons. From his past life, our hero remembers one item that should now be at the Marquis's house. In that case, he asked permission for one more request. Damien asked him for a bow, which surprised Holland. After all, he doesn't understand why our hero needs him, and he needs it to marry off his younger brother. At this time, Abel is sitting at home and poking a voodoo doll, and he suddenly feels uneasy. Afterwards, everyone went to their homes, and Damien was the first to arrive at the Gold Pixie estate. Dinner was being prepared for our hero, but he was already getting ready to go home. After all, he was gone for a very long time, and it was time to return to his family. Adam won't persuade him if he insists so much, but he asked to wait just one day while he gathered the knights who would accompany Damien. Although our hero is strong, bandits can still attack on the way back, and the Duke wants his return to be peaceful. Frankly, Damien doesn't need this at all, but it's probably better to accept his goodwill. He agreed to wait one day and thanked Duke Gold Pixie. After some time, they set out on their journey home, accompanied by knights. Victor is glad that they are finally returning home. He is also glad that the incident that Damien was involved in was resolved. Of course, he didn't mean anything by this. Riding in a carriage was very comfortable at first, but now walking is not at all easy, unlike for some who can ride a horse. The little bastard has clearly put on some fat since he was released from the estate, but he'll quickly get back into shape when he gets home. The sun was about to set, so one of the knights suggested preparing the camp. Our hero agreed and told him to do it. By the time the sun had completely set, they already had a fire. The knights did not sit down with our hero, but instead remained on guard. Victor prepared dinner for the young gentleman and the others. He called the knights to join the meal, but they refused, saying that they would eat separately later. Although Victor still tried to persuade them to eat with them, our hero remembered the farewell of Pabel and his brothers, These guys are too clingy. Pable thanked Mr. Damien because thanks to him, he was able to reach a new level. Besides this, he rendered a great service to the Duke. They promised that they would never forget the lessons that our hero gave them and would continue to strive forward. The boys bowed and thanked him sincerely. Although our hero can be quite callous, at that moment he smiled. The knights flatly refused to leave their post, and not in vain, as some noise was heard nearby. One of them went to quickly inspect the perimeter just in case, although Damien doesn't think it's necessary. The next moment, one of the knights was thrown into a tree and pinned to it by a spear. The spear was brought by dark magic. It seems that the Yulin members are close. The enemy did not expect that the Duke would actually send guards to accompany Damien. But these are just low-ranking knights. They won't be able to stop him. The enemy showed his face, which greatly surprised the second escort. After all, this is one of the respected knights of Duke Goldpixie, Mr. Ernst Howitz. That's why he doesn't understand why Howitz kills his own. A couple more people emerged from the shadows. The dark mages Rebecca and Mustang. They dispersed the enchanting scent to benefit all those on Damien's side. There is no other choice but to cut them down before they get out of control. Rebecca told the guard that he felt dizzy, after which he reached out to her with his hands, and then he spun her around himself and fell dead to the ground. Although Damien was a low-ranking knight, he was not affected by the enchanting aroma, and the enemy assumed that he had a special constitution. This makes him more curious. Perhaps he should be killed and then opened. Our hero is alone against two magicians and an enchanted knight, but the current situation does not frighten him. Howitz is glad to have finally met Damien. He wants to tear him apart and bring his soul to Lady Chelsea's grave. Although it is completely ridiculous, for someone who pissed himself from fear in front of Mr. Jail, very quickly begins to blame others for failing to protect her. Having said all this, our hero angered Howitz even more. But Rebecca believes that Mr. Damien is too cold-blooded, and one cannot torment a man wounded right in the heart. However, they do not understand where he gets so much confidence from, because there are 3 of them against 1. Damien knows that in front of him are the dark magicians of Yulan in the leadership rank, which amazes them. Our hero has quite acute hearing. Howitz believes his bravado is pointless. Today, he will make sure that Damien dies a painful death. However, our hero is not alone against 3. He has another ally from the Duke. Adam Goldpixie sent another knight to follow them at a distance. Middle-class knight Sebastian Vincenzo. Damien Haxon accepted the Duke's offer of escort. I thanked him and was about to leave, but Adam stopped him, saying that he had one more favor he would like to ask for. The conversation turned to Ernst Howitz, who had gone missing and, in addition, harbored a grudge against the ducal house and Damien. It is logical to assume that he may well try to take revenge, just like the dark magicians whose plans were destroyed by our hero. The Duke is protected by Lord Jail, but Damien is not, so another experienced knight will be assigned to guard him. The other middle-class knights were busy. Sir Sebastian was the only one free, so Adam Goldpixie entrusted him with Damien's protection, and he accepted the task, ready to protect the hero at the cost of his own life. But the Duke had given Sir Vincenzo another assignment in advance, to pursue Damien in secret and to protect him. Because if he had been openly near him, their enemies might never have revealed themselves. Although it was called security, it was actually a strategy to lure out the hiding dark mages. Howitz greeted Mr. Sebastian. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. He said that he had decided not to leave alive anyone involved in Lady Chelsea's death. And when Lady Chelsea was told she had committed suicide, Howitz became furious because he no longer believed it. She was determined. Such a woman would never commit suicide. He claims that Duke Goldpixie is to blame for her death, and she must have died as a result of the brutal interrogation. Howitz will not leave her death unavenged. He will kill Damien Haxon and everyone who interrogated her. And in the end, it will be the Duke's turn. Sebastian can't believe he's talking about killing his lordship. He's really gone crazy. But if he leaves Damien Haxon, then Ernst will spare him. What impudence! A worm like him dares to say that he will spare Sir Vincenzo himself, as expected from a middle-class knight. But Ernst used to be weaker than Sebastian. But now a surprise awaits him. Everything changed, as Ernst became much stronger from that time on. This fool actually resorted to black magic for revenge. He went through the same enhancement process as Guillermo Blackwing. In exchange for his life force, he received incredible amounts of mana and physical strength. Ernst's aura is overwhelming. It seems like he has already surpassed the middle-class level. Sebastian froze, so his enemy decided that he was surprised and ready to surrender. Ernst's warnings should have been heeded. All that was needed was to leave Damien Haxon, and then Sebastian would have remained alive. Ernst's attack destroys everything in its path. Incredibly powerful mana that is very difficult to reflect. In addition, this attack has a very long range. This power is truly incredible, no doubt about it. However, Sebastian Vincenzo is not as weak as Ernst believes. He trains not only his aura, but also his physical abilities, which allowed him to deftly dodge. Such a simple attack won't work on him, but it's unknown how long he can hold out like this. Sebastian asked our hero to leave this place to him and head to the Duke's estate for help. Damien obeyed and didn't forget to take Victor with him. But for Ernst and Yulan, Damien Haxon's death is more important than Sebastian's, so they can't let him escape. Ernst immediately hurried after our hero, but Sir Vincenzo stopped him. As long as he lives, Howitz will not be able to carry out his plans. They will both fight here until one of them dies. Ernst became even more angry, and since Sebastian was asking for it, he would kill him. However, the knight was unable to stop all three. Rebecca and Mustang were able to catch up with Damien. In their opinion, our hero should have escaped alone. It was stupid to think that he would be able to drag this fat man along with him. However, they're the only fools here because Damien had no intention of running away. He only lured them here because he couldn't fight properly in front of Sir Vincenzo. Our hero intends to end this quickly, deal with the magicians, and then save Vincenzo. For the dark magicians, such arrogant behavior came as a surprise. There are two of them, and they are also powerful magicians, while our hero plans to fight alone. Such impudence infuriated Mustang. He asked Rebecca to step aside to teach the stupid nobleman a lesson. Mustang spread his arms out to the sides and began to perform powerful magic. His entire body was covered with seals that began to shine. The mana spread and turned him into a huge and powerful monster. Mustang asked for permission to introduce himself properly. He is a member of Yulin Mustang Fury, and standing next to him is his second-in-command, Rebecca. Our hero expected to see an officer, but he turned out to be a much more significant figure than expected. Judging by the way he transforms his body using black magic, he must be from the Frenzy faction. It's surprising that Damien knows such details, but if so, he must know how strong they are. In addition to the Mustang's impressive size, its speed is also on par. He was behind Damien in an instant, and then delivered a blow of enormous force. Although the enemy couldn't even think that our hero would be able to withstand it, it means that the rumors were not exaggerated. The Mustang not only has enormous destructive power, but is also fast. Based on his physical abilities alone, he is at least above average. This monster is also capable of attacking not only with its hands, but also with its many tentacles. Our hero is able to dodge such attacks, but at some point he lost his way when he hit his back against a tree. The enemy then thought he was caught, but Damien was able to change the direction of Mustang's attack. Through the efforts of constantly consuming the elixir given by the Duke in training, our hero has finally reached the level where he can freely use countless insight. Mustang decided that what happened was just a cheap trick. However, as before, all who underestimated Damien paid the price. As soon as our hero drew his sword, Mustang was defeated. He cut off all of its tentacles, as well as its head. But it turned out that Mustang has the ability to restore his body, even if it is divided in half. This amazing regeneration is the power of dark mana. Our hero was afraid that everything would end too quickly, but this is even better. It's much more fun to fight when you don't have to hold back. Meanwhile, Ernst Howitz is trying his best to crush Sebastian, but he manages to deftly dodge all his attacks. However, even Ernst noticed that it was very difficult for Sebastian. Despite this, he respected him for having endured for so long. The knight is even ashamed to receive such respect from a man who became stronger with the help of black magic. It's bitter to admit, but it's true Sebastian, with his current strength, won't be able to fight anymore. He can only hope for Damien, but behind him he heard a loud roar. Our hero withstood this blow and is also glad that their fight did not end too quickly. He had even more bravado than Mustang thought, so he suggested to Damien to try to dodge his next attack. The mage gathered a large amount of dark mana into one highly concentrated point, after which he released it in the direction of Damien. But our hero used his sword's abilities to repel it and didn't even take a step back. This confused Mustang because his attack was really powerful, and our hero brushed it off without any difficulty, after which he began to chop it into pieces again. This doesn't frighten the magician, because no matter how much Damien cuts him, he will still recover. But our hero continued and continued. The huge carcass fell to the ground, but suddenly Mustang realized that his body was not recovering. Since the ability to regenerate originates from black magic, it cannot be used indefinitely. Our hero doesn't know much about dark magicians, but he believes that if you cut the enemy's throat, he will die. In a panic, Mustang decided to ask Rebecca for help. Damien proved too strong for him. Therefore, he hopes that they will cope with this together. She cast a 7th circle dark magic spell, Instant Death. In the whole world, only a few are able to survive something like this. Mustang and Rebecca rejoiced at the approaching victory. However, our hero took advantage of the power of the greedy, after which death dissipated. The dark mages couldn't understand what they had just seen. This pathetic black magic was their last desperate attempt. Mustang spent his entire life researching this black magic in Yulin. This secret technique can kill even a high-level enemy if all the conditions are met. It seems that Mustang is very fond of secret techniques. However, such magic is like a parasite that devours the soul and grows due to this. Damien came up with something funny. The very power they revere will kill them. Mustang was surprised when he saw that our hero released black mana. After all, at their level, they probably haven't seen anything like this. Dark magic of the 9th circle, impenetrable darkness. Mustang devoted his entire life to studying the secret technique of the 7th circle. And our hero, at such a young age, showed the 9th. Impenetrable darkness swallowed the dark magicians, after which it shrank to a small size and turned them into mincemeat. As soon as Rebecca died, her spell was broken and Victor regained consciousness. The remains of the enemies were scattered throughout the area. Victor rubbed his cheeks, not understanding what was on his face, but he only smeared blood everywhere. He thought that she belonged to him, which made him scared, and he fell again. Damien calmed him down, saying that she belonged to the dark magicians, but he forgot to ask them about Dorgo. He didn't want to resort to this force, but there was no other way. Since Damien didn't get information from them while they were alive, all that remains is to call upon their souls and learn everything from them. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vincenzo is already close to defeat. He no longer has the strength to dodge, and Ernst throws him from side to side. Sebastian refuses to admit defeat, can barely stand on his feet, and is stalling for time in the hope that Damien will bring help. Ernst prepares to deliver his final blow so that his opponent can rest in peace. But our hero arrived in time, praising the knight for holding up well. Ernst was already planning to find and kill him, but the prey itself came to the place of its death. But if he takes even one more step, he will be a corpse. Since Ernst considers Damien weak, he does not understand where he gets so much confidence and attacks. But as soon as Damien squeezes one of the balls in his hand, his enemy freezes, unable to bring the spear to the end. He doesn't understand what's happening and how to deal with it. Sebastian is very surprised that our hero was able to stop the enemy who almost killed him with such ease. Dark mana leaves Ernst's body. At the same time, he loses physical and vital strength. But even so, he does not give up trying to kill our hero. However, his dying throws were useless. What our hero did before this was destroy the soul of the dark magician. If the soul of the magician who controlled the person is destroyed, then the spell he cast will also disappear. I just need to explain myself to Sebastian because he has a lot of questions. Our hero told him that it looked like Guillermo, apparently a side effect of the black magic leak. He believed it, but he was still curious about what happened to the dark magicians. Our hero helped the knight get up. First, they need to return to the Duke's estate. And on the way, Damien will tell him what happened. By morning, they were already in his office. Everything turned out as the Duke had expected. He thanked Sir Sebastian for protecting Damien as ordered. Although everything turned out the other way around, our hero saved him. Then Adam Goldpixie thanked Damien for saving his knight and getting rid of the dark mages. Our hero pretended that it was not difficult, since their level was not that high. And after their death, supposedly, Howitz's black magic also dissipated. With the help of our hero, the Duke managed to get rid of the villains who threatened his family. And now there is a chance that the souls of the people who suffered from them will also be saved. Everything ended as the Duke planned, and now it's time for Damien to return home. Speaking of which, Adam again asks our hero to stay a little longer. There is someone Damien should definitely meet. Agnes entered the office. The Duke did not know that they already knew each other. Yeah, he definitely didn't want to see her right now. Our hero doesn't understand what this clingy thing is doing here. Agnes invited Damien to come into the garden and chat. The Duke is very curious about what is going on. He was surprised that such a young and fragile girl was actually an inquisitor. However, Adam sensed something from the very beginning. It seems to him that the air between these two is simply sparkling. This is how people from the outside see it. But in fact, Damien tells Agnes about how he cut off the heads of the dark magicians, and she regrets that she didn't see it with her own eyes, and Damien seems to have quite a long history with black magicians. In fact, she volunteered for this expedition on behalf of the church as soon as she heard that Damien was here. The address asked if our hero found out which group they belonged to before killing them. If he tells the truth, it could complicate things, so he said he didn't receive any information. In fact, Agnes assumed that they were from Yulin, but according to Damien's stories, they are very weak. Our hero decided to ask why she was so persistently looking for this group. Specifically, she is pursuing one particular black magician who was once associated with Yulan. He killed thousands of people and was known as the monster who played with corpses. Agnes is sure that Damien has heard of this before. No one knows his real name. But this strange nickname acquired a sad reputation after one event. One day, a nobleman's estate was completely overrun and became a lair of the undead in just one night. After the knights arrived and destroyed the creatures, they discovered something terrifying in the very center of the city square. A vile structure created entirely from the corpses and entrails of its inhabitants. From top to bottom, it was written in blood, playing with corpses. This demon committed massacre just to reveal his name to the world. Even now, her reason for pursuing Yulan is not entirely clear to Damien. And he also has strange feelings towards her. Our hero can't tell Agnes, but he actually knows his real name. Damien met this madman while he was a dark knight. In the distant future, he will win Dorgo's trust and rise to the rank of Legion Commander. His army of the undead will stand at the forefront, mercilessly exterminating millions of people. Helping to realize the Archlich's plans, Agnes asked Damien to let her know if he ever knew anything about him. He promised to fulfill her request, but at the moment, that's all he can tell her. Therefore, if she doesn't mind, our hero would like to end the interrogation at this point. And Agnes, of course, lets him go. Of course he knows that the Duke is watching him from the bushes. Damien informed him that the interrogation was over, and then asked permission to return to his business. He also agreed that there was no longer any reason to keep our hero. All that remains is to wish him to be more careful on his way back home. Meanwhile, at the Haxon estate, Louise was standing outside and Abel came out to her. She suddenly disappeared and his search led him to this place. If she stands like this, Damien won't return any faster so she can wait inside. But she is so worried about him that she cannot sit still. Louise called him a good boy who went alone to the Duke's estate, although Abel disagreed with her. He feels like it's more likely that Damien will scare everyone and not the other way around. As soon as Louise said that she wanted her brother to return safe and sound, she saw a silhouette on the horizon that looked like him and Victor. As soon as Damien saw her, he waved his hand and shouted out his return. Finally, Louise waited for him. When the parents came out to meet their son, they couldn't believe their eyes. The Duke gave over many valuable things before he left for Damien. First, he wants to give something to his father. Our hero bought books for him at the Duchy's bookstore, which were now popular in the capital. A new collection of poems by Lady Delphine, and the latest novel by Viscount Delac. And for Mom, expensive furniture made of cedar and rosewood. And he didn't forget about his sister either. He brought her a piano, handmade by the Master Barclay himself. The Duke gave it from his collection. The soldiers accompanying him will help carry all these things inside. Abel, of course, didn't expect anything, but he also wanted to get something, just like the others. But Damien decided to mock him, pretending not to understand his emotions. Of course, Abel understands this, but he can't do anything about his face. Our hero took advantage of the spatial storage pocket, in which he can store things and carry them with him. As for the gift for his younger brother, Damien chose it especially for him. Lady Cooperhead will surely be delighted if you give her this. Since his younger brother is going to get married, as the eldest, he should help. Abel feels embarrassed and also insecure, because Lady Olivia doesn't even know who he is. But when Damien was at the Duke's estate, he heard that a combat tournament would soon be held to celebrate the lady's birthday. Abel will participate in this tournament, using the chance to get closer to her. But this competition is for knights to show their skill in wielding a sword, something Abel doesn't have to worry about because Damien will take his place. A few days later, in the small town of Rivercross, everyone is already talking about the tournament that the Cooperhead family is hosting. The prize is huge, not to mention that you can win the lady's blessing. One of the men also thought about participating, but his friend talked him out of it. Someone so skinny would be immediately ground into dust. There are also already rumors that Viscount Haxon's eldest son is also participating. People at the next table heard Damien's name, and also stories about how he defeated the heir of Lion Bloom without drawing his sword. And people also praise his appearance very much. The girl laughed loudly, which attracted the attention of those around her. She asked her friend Jackson if he had heard all this nonsense. He also thinks that this is some kind of joke. However, the guy who was chatting about this decided that they were laughing at him for calling himself just as handsome. The girl tried to explain that they were talking not about him, but about Damien Haxon. It turned out that Jackson is a very jealous person, who reacts even to ordinary address as if it were flirting with his fiancée. And so the most handsome knight of Rivercross became a little uglier, and a little crippled. No one dares flirt with Jackson Cutter's fiancée. The rest are not going to ignore such an insult. These arrogant idiots don't even seem to understand who is standing in front of them. But they will pay for this. While Jackson is dealing with them, his fiancée is bored. But finally it's all over. Jackson approached one of the beaten men again to ask if it had finally dawned on him who was in front of him. Not hearing an answer, he punched him in the face again. He asked if Sophia could believe that Damien Haxon was more famous than him. After all, Jackson Cutter has the title of Ogre Slayer, but is rated as low class in strength. Sophia is our hero's ex-fiancée, and she doesn't understand how Damien, being a nobody, became a celebrity overnight. Only a few days have passed since our hero returned home. But no matter how sad it may be, his mother and sister are already saying goodbye to him again, and now also to Abel. The guys asked them not to worry and promised that they would be careful on the way. Father approved of this, as it was a good opportunity for their house to prove itself, but he was still worried. If Paul had known that his youngest son had a crush on the lady of the Cooperhead house, he would have proposed an alliance to them earlier. In any case, let their victory be a great result, but the most important thing is to return home safe and sound. Paul asked Abel not to forget his instructions. He asked him not to worry, but Damien did not understand what was being discussed. It's time to finish the instructions, and send the sons out of the yard, wishing them a safe journey. After some time, their carriage entered the outskirts of the Cooperhead estate. A typical situation between brothers. No one has spoken a word for several hours. They've never spent time alone, so Victor has no idea what to say. But if this continued, he would die of embarrassment. So he decided to break the silence by asking Abel about the moment when he fell in love. Now that Victor mentioned it, Damien realized that in his past life, he simply knew that Abel loved that lady, but never heard the reason. It's time to tell you, our hero has prepared a gift and traveled all this way to help Abel. We can share it. He agreed because Damien insists. His story began 4 years ago. Then Abel accompanied his father to a reception with Western nobility. Lady Olivia Cooperhead was also present. She was wearing a green dress that matched her brown hair perfectly. The guys concluded that he fell in love with her only because she was beautiful. Whatever their relationship, it was obvious that the two had been in love in a past life. But then the Count rejected Abel's marriage proposal, and not only refused, but openly insulted the Haxon family, calling them unworthy, after which he spent his entire life alone and died without ever marrying, and was killed by the Death Knight, his own older brother. If our hero remembers correctly, Abel remained a virgin all his life, and this time he will not allow that to happen again. His gaze was so focused that his younger brother felt extremely uneasy. But he managed it, and 3 days later they reached the Cooperhead estate. Their family must have spent a lot of money to throw a party for the whole town. Also, random passers-by are not allowed at the gate. There is a person at the entrance who checks guests against a list. Upon hearing that they were from the Haxon family, the man immediately changed his tone. He apologized for being abrupt. He is Connor, the head butler of the Cooperhead household. There were a lot of people and everyone needed to be kept an eye on. so he offered to take them to a place where they would temporarily stay. They will be in a very spacious room, and if they need anything, they can call the butler. The Count seems to be a very generous man, since he accommodated them with such comfort. Even Victor will have a separate room. The Chester Cooperhead that Damien knew wasn't so considerate. Most likely, he was trying to win favor since his reputation had grown. Our hero decided to look around outside, but Abel said that he would go with him, as he promised his father. Paul told his youngest son that if it looked like Damien was about to cause trouble, he should stop him. As soon as our hero left the tent, he immediately bumped into Sophia. He pushed her slightly, and the girl created a whole drama. Her fiancé immediately rushed over to find out what had happened. He grabbed Damien by the collar and asked him to watch where he was going. Suddenly, he realized that Damien Haxon was standing in front of him. Sophia felt awkward because of all the people she bumped into him. She stood up and greeted Damien. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. However, our hero did not recognize them, so he decided to ask directly who they were. Sophia was offended by this because she was his ex-fiancée, and she decided that he was just pretending. Damien grabbed Jackson firmly by the hands and suggested that they talk calmly after he calmed down. Abel and Victor went outside to find out if everything was okay. They didn't expect to see Sophia there. Damien asked Abel if he knew this girl. He told him that this was his ex-fiancée. After this, our hero finally remembered who was in front of him, and the faces immediately seemed quite familiar. Once upon a time, in her first life, Sophia abandoned Damien, and he begged her to talk to him. Then Jackson came out and stood next to her. They both mocked our hero. Damien couldn't believe that she had decided to unilaterally break off the engagement. Sophia initially did not want to marry him. She had no choice since their grandfathers decided everything, but that is in the past. Besides, it doesn't make any sense at all because she's Sophia Roussel, and such a good-for-nothing heir of a small house cannot be a match for her. Jackson allowed him to leave peacefully for Sophia's sake, but asked him not to dare appear in front of them again. He could not bear such humiliation and neglect. Therefore, as was usually the case with him then, he rushed at Jackson with his fists. But although he was constantly getting into fights, he did not have the strength he has now. Jackson gave him a good beating and threw him to the ground in the mud. He allegedly tried to show mercy to our hero. Well, in his opinion, Damien doesn't even know his place. A worthless bastard from a lousy family. And Sophia watched this from above without saying a word. It was also raining that day when he was beaten and thrown out. Although it was a long time ago, remembering the past story, our hero felt strong anger. They assumed that Damien was still feeling ashamed of what had happened back then, so he pretended to be cold. Jackson didn't think they would see each other again, but for some reason he thinks it's great. Damien immediately saw through this whole theater, and that these fools again wanted to teach him some important lesson. However, our hero is now not as emotional as before. He doesn't intend to prove anything and simply shook your hand, but if he wants to teach you a lesson, he'll do it differently. As soon as Jackson took Damien's hand, he immediately decided that he had fallen for it. But as soon as he twitched, our hero knocked him over. They wanted to humiliate him, but now Jackson is kissing the ground, and Sophia is shocked and scared. Our hero still wanted to kill him. So thanks to this bastard for giving me a reason. Jackson gathered all his strength and stood up abruptly. After that, he immediately reached for the sword. He wanted to kill Damien on the spot for such humiliation. But our hero turned it all into a joke, saying that whoever got a nosebleed first lost. A man approached Jackson and asked him to stop immediately. It's incredible that a useless guy became so strong in such a short time. This man has a good energy about him. He is at least middle class. And he seems to know Damien. He's interested in how far our hero has progressed. If Jackson was done fooling around, then it was time for them to go back. He wanted to complain that this freak hit him in the face, but quickly shut up in front of his master. The man asked him to stop his idle chatter and follow him. Jackson was angry, but there was nothing he could do. He had to put away his sword and say goodbye. Our hero didn't understand what was wrong with them and why they just left. This man is Jacques Noir, and they will soon meet Damien Haxon. Our hero has a poor memory of a person with that name, but he feels that something interesting is about to start. Once at his place, Jackson began to ask Jacques why he stopped him, because he could have easily dealt with this bastard. But he didn't receive an answer to his question. Jacques only grabbed him by the throat. He did tell him not to make any noise and to be quiet while they were here. All Jackson can do is apologize, and Jacques calls him a fool. After all, if he hadn't stopped this hype, Jackson would already be dead at the hands of Damien Haxon. But he didn't believe him, considering that such a thing was impossible. Jacques said again that it was true. He didn't know what this boy had been through, but his strength was already far superior to Jackson's. If they ever met again, he asked his protege not to think of starting a fight. Their only goal is to win the martial arts tournament. Although Jackson finds it strange that he has to win Olivia's favor while being engaged to Sophia, winning the tournament and establishing a connection with Lady Olivia are the key conditions for Jacques' wish to come true. Ascend to the rank of a true master. Jackson should simply prepare for the tournament while his master goes to gather information on Cooperhead and the other participants. As soon as Jacques Noir left, Sophia immediately ran to her lover. She immediately noticed a mark on his neck, but Jackson said everything was fine. Damned old man, if he demands something, he could at least explain it properly because he doesn't understand. How is victory related to his becoming a master? Once he surpasses the rank of a middle-class knight, He will kill that bastard himself. Later, the people gathered in the tournament arena. Damien Hoxton is already known to many. He looks as disgusting as the rumors say. The Earl of Chester Cooperhead announced that today marks his daughter's birthday with this grand event. He expressed his gratitude to all the distinguished guests for coming. Abel beamed as soon as he saw his beloved, Earl Cooperhead's daughter, Olivia Cooperhead, standing next to her father. Here, in this very arena, the bravest knights of the Western Kingdom of Apple have gathered. The winner will gain fame throughout their land, and with it, a reward worthy of that fame. The tournament will last 2 days and will be divided into team and individual fights. Healers will also be on hand, so participants can show off their full strength without worrying about injury. The first duel will begin in 2 hours, and the Count is eager to see the knight's valor. Our hero said goodbye to Abel and Victor, saying that they would see each other a little later. This event was organized for Olivia, so her father asked her to at least try to look happier. However, the girl is unhappy. She didn't ask for anything like this at all. All this is organized only to show off the prestige of their family. But even if she is not interested, the guests will definitely all applaud when the competition begins. It's time for the first event, Team Battle Monster Hunt. The audience shouts out the names of their idols. Even Damien has his fans. Of all the people, Jackson chose our hero for his team. However, the first event, Monster Hunting, is perfect for him. He will make sure that everyone around him remembers his name. And finally, the bars of the pen are raised. The most select monsters were chosen for the knights. Many of the participants were already terrified at the sight of them. They decided to disperse and not engage in direct combat. Jackson also took a step back, but Damien didn't even bat an eyelid. Even when, before his eyes, a huge monster crushed one of the participants. Our hero didn't expect this at this competition. It seems that the Earl of Chester Cooperhead has a rather dangerous hobby. He gathered monsters that even the middle class would have a hard time fighting one-on-one. Low-class knights only have a chance if they work together. However, no one had time to develop a strategy and choose a leader. Therefore, as soon as the monsters appeared, chaos began, which has already cost some their lives. The blood flew so far that it fell on the spectators. Many people came here to watch the competition, but were not prepared for the bloody arena. Even Lady Olivia does not accept such spectacles. However, the Count believes that a true knight should not have died so easily. Although in this way, the troll will weed out the weaklings among the participants. But after the shock had passed, the audience again shouted words of support. After all, viewers always want something exciting and thrilling, and the more exciting it is, the better. Because someone else is risking their life for their pleasure while they sit in safety. Jackson struck the troll multiple times in different parts of his body. But his regeneration is incredible. An attack of this level is completely insufficient. While everyone is bustling about, our hero is still standing in one place. But now it's clear why he was forced to sign a strange disclaimer of liability before the start, in which it was said that they would not blame them even if they died. Even Jackson would be at a disadvantage when facing this monster one-on-one. But if he has a partner who will support him, there will be more than enough chances to win. But even those who didn't die at first can't get close to the monster. The troll continues to fend off attacks of various types. The knights try to attack him all at once, trying to inflict enough wounds to at least temporarily immobilize him while he regenerates, and then finish it off by cutting off the monster's head. However, the troll is not so weak. He caught the knight in flight with his huge hand, after which he swatted him like a mosquito. But Jackson did not back down, deciding that now was the best time for him. He was able to get close and cut off the huge head. Sophia, like the rest of the spectators, admires his courage. This made Jackson turn his nose up even higher, thinking that he is the person who will become the strongest knight. However, a second troll appeared behind him. He realized this as soon as all the spectators fell silent. Somehow he managed to put up protection, thanks to which he was able to survive. He became so arrogant that he completely forgot about the second one. Damien resigned himself to the fact that even if this was the Count's stupid hobby, he would at least have to play along convincingly. Jackson watches as our hero goes after the troll alone, considering that he is a complete idiot and is trying to ruin himself. The monster did not keep him waiting and immediately attacked Damien. But our hero used the secret art, all-encompassing gaze, and changed the trajectory of the blow, after which he ran up his arm onto his back and jumped up with a sword. He then used the secret art of bloody death. This victory was quick and spectacular, which makes our hero stand out from the crowd. Jackson is shocked by what he sees. He cannot believe that this is the man he previously humiliated. Abel began to shout his older brother's name loudly, and people who didn't know him before also began to cheer for him. The Count also appreciated his abilities and was convinced that his reputation was not at all exaggerated. Our hero easily dealt with the troll and put the sword away in his spatial pocket. This attracted public attention and confirmed his reputation, and also amazed Jackson. After the completion of the first stage, a banquet was held at the Cooperhead estate. All the girls' eyes were directed at our hero, as well as at his younger brother. In their opinion, they look even more attractive up close. Abel is surprised that Damien managed to prepare such luxurious clothes. He bought it in advance at a famous clothing store, Moonlight Wave in Landwork. According to the ladies, Damien looks masculine and will be their favorite now and forever. Jackson is furious. He can't listen to this nonsense calmly anymore. It irritates him that everyone recognizes this loser, but not him. He wanted to find understanding from his fiancée, but it seemed she also admired Damien. Sophia doesn't understand how she didn't notice how handsome our hero is before. Count Cooperhead entered the hall with his daughter, Lady Olivia. He thanked all the knights and guests who attended the tournament held in honor of his daughter's birthday. The bravery and indomitable spirit of the young knights inspired him greatly for the first time in a long time. He hopes that tomorrow's final will be just as perfect, and will now announce the prize that the winner will receive. The Count put his hand into the fire and asked everyone to watch very carefully. People were scared when they saw such a sight, but everything is fine. The Count took out his hand and showed everyone that it was absolutely healthy, all thanks to the power of the treasure he was clutching in his fist. Our hero recognized it as he suspected it was really here, the heart of the spirit. This treasure protects its owner from flames and also maintains body temperature. Even for magicians, its origin remains a mystery. But one thing is certain, its value is incredible. The winner will receive it as a prize. The crowd is excited. Damien can't believe they're using the spirit heart as a cheap prize in the tournament. They clearly don't know its true value. Initially, our hero was not interested in the prize, but it is very tempting. The Earl of Chester Cooperhead hopes that all his guests will enjoy today's banquet. A guy from the crowd, Franz from the Nyssen house, approached him. In honor of the young lady's birthday, he prepared a modest gift. These are cosmetics created by alchemists of the sword school using spiritual powder. It's really a humble gift for their family. Another guy, Charlie from the Zion house, approached them. He also prepared a gift for Olivia. A necklace made of 7-colored crystal, said to be a rare gem that drops once when 100 golems are destroyed. In fact, the Cooperhead vault was full of them, but the Count still thanked them for the gifts and asked them to give them to the butler. As expected, the competition to attract the young lady's attention has already begun. However, such a rich Count could not be surprised by ordinary gifts, and Jackson also decided to take advantage of the opportunity. He hoped that Chester had heard of his fame, but no one had ever heard of him. Jackson took out an elixir of condensed life force from his pocket. One drop was enough to last the whole day without feeling tired. This was the priceless elixir that the teacher had told him to give to the Count. Targeting the Count instead of the young lady was a smart decision. This gift really pleased such a rich man quite well. Very soon, it will be Damien and Abel's turn. Jackson said goodbye, pleased with himself and thinking that everything went perfectly. The attempt was good, but our hero believes that he still failed to win the young lady's affection. When Damien approached the Count, he greeted him joyfully. After all, our hero's achievements today were truly impressive. He noticed that Olivia showed no interest in the banquet held in her honor. Her tastes are quite complex, but Abel shouldn't worry. When she sees her gift, even this woman will react, and the Count himself is interested in what gift a man of such stature could bring to Olivia. Damien used his ring. The Count was surprised that he had a spatial magic tool. When our hero took out his bow, Olivia finally raised her bored eyes. And when he took it out completely, she even stood up from her seat. This gift turned out to be the most interesting of all those given previously. Although other people don't understand its value, it looks like an ordinary cheap bow. And the Count himself was surprised. He was giving something so unimpressive, he thought that his daughter would definitely not like it. However, she was very happy. For her, this bow was the most amazing thing in the world. This is exactly the reaction our hero was expecting. He asked Abel to give this bow to the young lady. The information that her hobby is hunting turned out to be true. To win a person over, you need to understand his needs well. Olivia, taking it in her hands, appreciated how incredibly elastic it was, and also what he had made from the horn of the Minotaur. Our hero told her that it was made not from an ordinary Minotaur horn, but from the horn of their leader. Jackson is surprised, because this is the monster that the middle class of knights are afraid to fight one-on-one. The craftsman's name, Augustus, is also carved on it. Even the Count was shocked when he heard this name. Our hero confirmed the origin of the bow. The equipment created by August is very valuable, as he is the best blacksmith in the Apple Kingdom. Once, a shield he created was sold at auction for an impossibly high price. The Count never thought that he would receive such a valuable gift in his life. But Olivia calmed him down a little, reminding him that this gift belonged to her. However, Damien noticed that this gift was not from him and that he needed to thank someone else. He praised his younger brother, singing that he had gone through a lot to get this for the lady. Olivia decided to ask how he was able to obtain something so valuable. The Count allowed his daughter to communicate with Abel. He himself was interested, but he would find out about it later from Olivia. Our hero called Abel because he stood like a pillar of excitement. He cannot miss this great opportunity. No matter how nervous he was still able to tell Olivia how glad he was to meet her. The hero of the evening is Abel, so Damien is out. Seeing this, Jacques Noir understands that his and Jackson's plan didn't work. He expected Damien to be quite strong, but he didn't think he was so competent, winning the hearts of both the Count and his daughter. He can't let this continue, because if things go this way, the Haxon brothers will get both the victory in the tournament and the Count's daughter. He asked Jackson to follow him, and Sophia remained to wait for them in the banquet hall. Our hero noticed them leaving, and I immediately realized that these two were up to something. The next day, Damien and his companions were walking around the area. All the time, our hero looked slyly at his younger brother, which made him feel awkward. Yesterday, Damien saw how Abel communicated very easily. The atmosphere between him and Lady Olivia was very good, after which he left and said that he would wait for good news from Abel as soon as possible. And Victor wished his master good luck in the upcoming battle. Abel decided to thank his older brother for creating this opportunity for him. But he decided to play a joke, because in front of him was some stranger who had put his younger brother somewhere. Although all this was expected, because it is natural when a brother takes care of his brother. All he can do is do everything he can to get along with Lady Olivia as best he can. The second match of the tournament will feature singles fights. Our hero shows himself to be just as cool as before. None of his opponents were able to land even a single blow on him. Abel and Victor are cheering for him at the top of their lungs. At the end of the second match of the tournament, our hero reaches the final. In the stands, a rather secretive woman unexpectedly approached Abel. It turned out to be Lady Olivia, but it's strange that she's here. Olivia sneaked in here to warn of the danger. She found out about it last night. The girl couldn't sleep until late, so she left the room for a walk. She was excited after a pleasant conversation with Abel and was thinking about how to meet him again. Then the servant said that the Count was calling her to him. Her father told her some very unpleasant news. By his order, she is obliged to marry Sir Jackson Cutter. Olivia herself is of course not happy about this because she doesn't even know this person. And Jackson was irritated. Jacques told him to follow him, so he hurried, but did not know about further plans. His beloved Sophia is waiting for him, and Olivia does not understand how such a decision was made without her. However, the Count advised her not to deceive herself, since she was the eldest daughter of such a noble family. And therefore, marriage is not something she can decide on her own. It is a question that her father, as the head of the family, makes. And of course, the basis for such a decision is the benefit that their house can receive from this marriage. Sir Jacques, a man of the middle class, promised that at the time of this marriage he would support their house. Among the great nobles of the past, the only houses whose core forces included members of the middle class were Gold Pixie and Lion Bloom. Just those two. If this marriage takes place, their house, like them, will gain a powerful fighting force. In addition, Jacques promised to pass on weapons techniques and mana cultivation methods to the Duke's house, which the knights of their house could use, but he didn't even teach this to his student. Olivia is disappointed that she is going to be sold for the benefit of the house. These conditions are satisfactory for Chester, but there is still one small problem. Jackson is a completely unknown knight. Then Jacques asked not to worry about it, since his student would win tomorrow's fight. But Graf reminded that Damien Haxon is participating, and therefore it won't be so easy to win. Jacques is confident that he can do it, but he will need the Count's help. It's simple, he just needs to not interfere, even if Damien Haxon dies. Olivia tried to object, but apparently no one was really listening to her. The Count gave his consent without further questions. Then the girl decided to run away quietly and at least try to warn. She feels guilty that she couldn't stop her father. Abel and Victor are horrified. They suggested running away immediately. Our hero thought that Jacques was simply giving off a bad impression, but he didn't expect him to do something like that. And Count Cooperhead behaves exactly the same as in his past life. He will do anything if it brings benefits to his house. Abel was scared to hear that Damien was not going to run away, because he thought that a middle-class knight was strong even for his older brother. But our hero calmed him down and said that he had already figured out how to proceed. First, we need to finish the current fight. Then Damien went to the arena to join the other tournament participants. They all looked at him with apprehension, because he was the main enemy for them all. The drums beat, attracting the crowd's attention. The finale was about to begin, but the Count noticed that his daughter was still missing. It is necessary to congratulate the knights who have reached the final and explain the rules of the final battle. There will be only one winner. The last one standing will become the champion of this tournament. There are no other rules, so they can fight however they want. It was decided this way for Jackson's victory, because it was the only way out. Victor is worried about the young gentleman, but Abel believes in him and suggests that they just watch for now. It's a no-holds-barred fight, which clearly reeks of something dirty. Of course, the participants, without even discussing anything, decided to unite against the strongest. And Jacques Noir watches what is happening from the stands with satisfaction. As much as Jackson hated to admit it, there was nothing he could do about it. And the others think the same. To survive in such a fight, there is one main rule. Eliminate the strongest first. Namely, Damien Haxon. The night before, after talking about marriage with Lady Olivia. Upon his return, Jackson tried to find out from his teacher why he was doing this. After all, he suggested this without even asking his student. However, Jacques immediately shut his mouth. If Jackson had been clever enough, he would not have had to make such an offer to the Count. Then there would be no need to waste his time and knowledge. But he doesn't want to obey because he already has Sophia. Jacques asked Jackson to leave her because she was now useless. The reason he allowed the student to date Sophia Russell was because he wanted to gain the support of the Russell house. Thanks to this, Jacques was able to obtain the fencing manual he needed. He also received the elixir Jackson would need to move up from the lower class, but House Russell has nothing else to offer. The union with House Cooperhead is not only for support, Jacques uses this marriage to rule their house, all for the sake of his long-cherished desire, and it doesn't matter that Jackson actually loves Sophia. Jacques reminded her how she had dumped Damien simply because he hadn't been good enough, meaning he might do it again. He reminded him of the moment when her ex-fiancé started to succeed a little. Her relationship instantly changed. So you shouldn't take such a girl seriously. Jacques handed Jackson a ring. This ring will enhance something and will help you win. He asked to use it as he says and fight Damien. When he loses his mind and goes into a rage, pretend that something unexpected has happened and kill him. Jackson is already negatively disposed towards his mentor, but for now, he has decided to pretend that he is following the bastard's orders. And at the moment, he himself wants to get rid of our hero. Sophia actively supports her lover during the fight. Jackson intends to kill Damien today, and prove to her that it is much more suitable for her. But when all the participants attacked our hero at once, he dodged without even taking his hands out of his pockets. One of the knights tried to attack him from behind, but our hero deftly dodged it without even turning around. Damien fights his opponents as if he were playing games, thus demonstrating his superiority to the whole crowd. At this time, Victor and Abel actively support him. Our hero noticed that the other participants wanted to overwhelm him with numbers and somehow get out of it, but so far they haven't been very successful at it. Jackson is surprised that Damien is fighting against several low-class knights without even drawing his sword. Then he realized that our hero had surpassed the lower class. The participants tried to attack him again. They attack in a crowd and at the same time talk about the honor of the house and glory, which is funny. But Damien can handle this too, because he possesses a secret technique, the all-encompassing gaze, thanks to which he will be able to parry all attacks from all sides. Both knights who attacked him were left without weapons. After all, they all signed an agreement before participating. Therefore, let them consider the meeting with our hero an accident. Abel was so proud that he even started telling his neighbors that this was his brother. Count Cooperhead and Jacques Noir realized that their plan may fail. It looks like Jackson is left alone with our hero. He asked Damien to stop showing off, and in the meantime, he took the stone from the ring. Our hero noticed that his opponent had put it in his mouth. Immediately after that, his body was filled with mana, which reached out to the bodies lying on the ground. Our hero did not expect to see anything like this at the tournament organized by the Count. Now Jackson is confident of his victory, and Damien is amazed by the devilry that is happening here. This is what is called a mana frenzy, a phenomenon in which the mana within the body escapes the control of the owner and begins to move chaotically. In this case, not only does a significant loss of mana occur, but the body can also be seriously damaged, leaving the victim crippled. This is the trump card Jackson was given by his teacher, an item that causes a mana surge in anyone near it. He is sure that now Damien will have to crawl on the ground like the devil. However, our hero simply laughed in his face. He called Jackson and his teacher complete and utter nonsense. After all, our hero expected something like this, but that's all they could come up with. They also resorted to black magic, although Jackson himself seemed unaware of this. Our hero said that he was very sorry, but such things have no effect on him. Jean is also confused. He doesn't understand why the ring's power didn't work on him. Apparently, the mana riot didn't affect Damien at all. Damien had already realized that Jacques Noir had teamed up with the Count to get rid of him, and was using his student to do so. And if our hero takes advantage of this opportunity, he can make all these bastards eat shit at once. While Damien was thinking, Jackson tried to attack him, but again failed. Our hero is too good to lose to a low-class knight. Since it had come to this, Jackson decided to kill Damien with his true power. But he forgot his place. Our hero finally attacked, and then his opponent had no chance at all. Jackson had no way to respond to an attack of such force, and the spectators almost got it too. Jackson was no longer able to continue the fight and fell to his knees spitting out the stuff. Black magic came out of him with great force, after which he fell to the ground unconscious. Even the spectators already understood what it was, because the entire arena was covered with ominous dark energy. It seems that the Count himself did not know what he had signed up for because he himself was surprised. He urgently needs to do something because the crowd is becoming increasingly restless. At this rate, the rumors will soon reach the church. The Count ordered an immediate end to the fighting and to shut everyone's mouths before it spread. And so far, everything is going according to plan for our hero. Although the main rat is already trying to escape, the Count is furious. He trusted Jacques Noir and he dared to disgrace him like that. There is no evidence that he was connected to him, so he can only pretend that he knows nothing. However, just as he was about to climb into the carriage, our hero called out to him. The Count was frightened, because apparently Damien already knew everything, but he continued to deny everything. But since he decided to play the fool, then our hero has no choice. Damien quickly dealt with his guards. He didn't touch the Count, but he scared him a little, after which he asked the question again. Now he probably remembered what he should have said. Later, the Count learned that his daughter had told about all their insidious plans. After he fed her and gave her a roof over her head, she dared to betray him. Then Damien brazenly threw his feet up on the table right in front of him. After all, they had already talked about everything, and he couldn't blame Olivia for this. The church will soon arrive on the scene to investigate, and they will then learn of his alliance with Jacques to kill Damien. They also use black magic, which the church hates the most. And even if Damien remains silent, Jackson will still reveal the whole truth, because the torture of the Inquisitors is terrible. After our hero intimidated the Count, he immediately said that he had his own connections in the church, and that protecting him would not be difficult. But all this will not be done just like that. Damien has his own conditions. First, approval of his younger brother's relationship with Lady Olivia. And secondly, declare our hero the winner of the fighting tournament. Third, Olivia said, as compensation for this matter, pay 300 gold pieces to the Viscountcy of Haxon. This wasn't Damien's plan, but it's a great idea. And finally, Olivia has one more suggestion, which of course irritates the Count because she is his daughter. She demanded that half of the territory be handed over to her within a year. He wanted to object, since it wasn't she who initially set the conditions. But Olivia reminded him that she was a witness to everything that happened. The Count is angry that his daughter is trying to take advantage of the opportunity to fleece her own father blind. But she intends to take back what is hers and leave behind this disgusting family that used her as a tool. Our hero didn't expect Olivia to go so far. She turned out to be scarier than he thought. If her father has no objections, then she considers that he completely agrees. In principle, the Count doesn't really have a choice. A few days later, it was time to hear the verdict from the church. Our hero told his version to the second-ranked church paladin Thomas, in which Count Cooperhead is innocent. They have already received a confession from the criminal Jackson Cater, who stated that they conspired with the Count and attempted to kill Damien. But the Count declared that it was all a lie, that he had only been told not to interfere with the outcome of the duel, and he had no idea what they were going to do. Damien also added that Chester Cooperhead himself came to him and warned him about the danger. If the Count had really wanted to kill him, he would have had no reason to do so. He said that after meeting them, he began to worry and secretly visited Damien, and if he had known about black magic, he would have stopped them himself. Our hero asked Sir Thomas to believe him, and swore in the name of God that neither the Earl nor he had said a word of lies. Given their good relationship, Paladin listened to Sir Damien's words. Our hero kept his promise, now the Count needs to keep his. But at least he is glad that he survived. After all this, it was time to return home. Abel did not think that he would introduce Lady Olivia to his family so soon. Damien himself wanted everything to work out for them, but it was quite painful to watch. Well, there were a few difficult moments, but our hero eventually achieved his original goal. The church's investigation concluded within a week, concluding that there were no other suspects besides Jackson and Jacques. The Count was completely acquitted, but Olivia had already managed to take a lot from him. That is why she chose to leave with Abel rather than stay in her father's house. Abel received Olivia's love as he wished, and our hero received the main prize for winning the tournament. The situation was awkward, so there was no award ceremony, but he still got it. The Count doesn't know the true value of this item, but Damien does. The spirit heart is a clot of power that forms with an extremely low probability when a high-ranking spirit disappears, if our hero can melt it and absorb it. It is capable of granting him not only colossal magical power, but also the strength of the spirit itself. Damien sees for the first time a heart containing the ability of the fire spirit. By simply absorbing it, he will be able to reach the level of his past life much faster. Jacques Noir is now wanted and blames Damien for everything that happened. He wants revenge, which is why he followed them all the way and waited for the right moment. At night, while everyone is sleeping, is the best time to carry out insidious plans. It was at this moment that Jacques poked his nose out of the shadows. But as soon as he drew his sword, Damien called out to him. Our hero thought his neck would fall off from anticipation. Jacques reacted quickly and used a long-range attack, but missed, only cutting down the branch Damien was sitting on. He knew from the very beginning that Jacques was following them, and he also knew what his true target was. The heart of the spirit is with Damien after all. He is the winner of this tournament. If Jacques' goal had been to arrange a marriage between Jackson Cutter and Lady Olivia, he wouldn't have been so obsessed with winning the bastard's hand. Even using dangerous black magic, it is obvious that his original goal was the winner's reward. Jacques thought it would be difficult to get to the heart, considering that there were church bastards everywhere. But it was good that he followed Damien. Now he just needs to kill him and take the spirit's heart. But our hero doubts that he will succeed. Jacques went on the attack, but Damien deftly parried all his attacks. At one point, he almost managed to get our hero, but almost doesn't count. Still, this guy is one of the best among the middle class. His strength is not wasted, his attacks are assertive. He is surprised that some low-class scum is able to withstand his blows. But he thinks that this is all, since he managed to master the art of the ghost sword. This is the master's ball control technique, which he has been restoring throughout his life. All swords of this technique are simultaneously ghostly and real. The senses cannot distinguish the real ones from the fake ones. Our hero filled his special sword with mana, after which he released her, scattering all the clones to the wind. This put Jacques in an awkward position, as it was his most powerful technique. It took him a while to realize what would happen next. It was this move that blocked Jackson's sword back then. Damien asked not to make a mountain out of a molehill over a technique that has nothing special about it. And after demonstrating how mediocre this technique is, Jacques decided that Damien was familiar with this technique. But our hero told him that he just tried to repeat his movement, and it worked. At that moment, Jacques' entire inner world seemed to collapse. Since childhood, without a shred of doubt, he considered himself a genius. However, the moment he met a real genius, his illusions were shattered by a single blow. The true genius defeated him with ease and a bored expression on his face. Then Jacques realized that he was not a real genius, just a little above others. And that's when it all started. To compensate for the lack of talent and catch up with people who are called geniuses, he went in search of secret elixirs and master techniques. If it made him stronger, he didn't care what method he resorted to. After more than 10 years, he finally managed to reach the middle class. He mastered this technique with great difficulty, spending his life on the path to strength, and Damien simply copied it. He even said that it was a waste of mana. These damn geniuses always just go and do it. Our hero chopped off his head to keep him quiet. He doesn't want to waste time on irrelevant stories. It's time to go to bed. Although early, after killing an enemy, Damien should search him because he might find something useful. Afterwards, they returned home with Olivia. She stayed at their estate for a whole month. She helped with household chores and became friends with all the residents of the Viscounty. Although the servants kept running after her and trying to stop her, because it was not appropriate for such a lady to do such work, Mom came out of the estate and suggested that Olivia leave this and go into the house to rest a little. Marilda heard that the groom's wife was pregnant, so she was going to visit them. Olivia decided to join in and offered to bring food that would be helpful for recovery. Paul watched from his office window as the women chatted pleasantly in the courtyard. Managing the lands has become much easier thanks to Olivia. Even the servants are grateful for the attention his daughter-in-law pays to everything. Her parents were shocked when they first met her, but Olivia adjusted very quickly. The Count's daughter appeared in person, bringing with her half of her family's lands, and declared that she would marry Abel. Thanks to Olivia, they even managed to take the arrogance out of people at social events who had previously looked down on their family. It turned out that marriage proposals to Damien were pouring in from all sides, as he had become quite famous. But our hero thinks that it is too early for him to get married. Although my father didn't understand, sometimes you get married too late, but never too early. First of all, a man needs to settle down in one place to find stability. In his youth, Paul also rejected many young ladies. The father continued to talk about marriage, which caused Damien to lose control and jump out of the window. The holidays are still a long way off, so father will wait with his lectures. In fact, our hero never even dreamed of himself as a husband. Besides, worrying about it in the first place is a luxury for a person like him, even if everything he did was not done of his own free will. But someone's children, brothers, and parents died at his hands. This fact cannot be changed. In his opinion, such a killer does not deserve happiness. More importantly, he needs to get stronger as quickly as possible so he can kill Dorgo first. Damien ran into the forest to train. In the book, he saw a technique that destroys madness. It was a new mana cultivation technique he discovered after defeating Jacques Noir. Unlike the normal cultivation method where you have to sit still as usual and absorb mana, this is an unusual technique that allows you to absorb mana even while moving, the principle of which is quite complex. If combined with existing methods, something quite decent can be created. And if, in addition, the spirit heart is correctly absorbed, then our hero will definitely be able to become stronger in a short time. But just as he began to warm up, Victor came to announce the arrival of a guest. For some reason, upon hearing about the guests, our hero had a bad feeling. Entering the house, Damien saw Agnes. In principle, this is exactly what he expected to see. She apologized for coming so suddenly. She was driven by the need to ask Damien for a difficult favor. They confirmed the location of the corpse puppeteer's dungeon. She talked about how they were tracking him and apparently finally found him. That's why Agnes came to our hero. After all, Damien is strong and talented. So she came from the church to ask him to lend her power, to punish this evil in the person of the puppeteer of corpses. The next morning, right at dawn, Damien tried to sneak out of the house. He wanted to do it while everyone was sleeping. But it turned out that Victor gets up very early and cleans the area. Damien said he was going to morning training, but Victor assumed it was because of Lady Agnes's request. I assumed that our hero was going to join this punitive detachment. He hopes that this time his master will not go, because everyone knows how dangerous the dungeon created by this puppeteer is. First of all, the Viscount would never allow this, but Damien didn't tell him anything. So Victor will have to pretend that he didn't see anything. But he can't send Damien to a place that will clearly cause his death, although it is unclear what he was hoping for when he came out against our hero with a broom. Picking up Victor, Damien again noticed how thick and heavy he was. It's about time he lost weight. He sat him down against the wall and promised that he would not fall for the corpse puppeteer's stupid tricks. It's also an ideal opportunity to eliminate one of Dorgo's henchmen, which our hero cannot miss, so he must go. If Victor hears, he asked to tell his father where he went. Arriving at the scene, Damien met the other paladins participating in the pursuit. He met Margaret, a second-rank paladin of the School of Blazing, a huge woman. The skills of a second-tier paladin are comparable to that of an average knight. This woman's aura is definitely extraordinary. Margaret didn't expect Damien to come, considering it was a dungeon created by the corpse puppeteer, but he said that he could not refuse the request received from Lady Agnes, and besides, he cannot stand dark magicians. A bit wasteful, but nothing could be done. She handed him the sword. Margaret gave our hero the sacred blade, weapons crafted from a rare metal that undergoes countless etchings by the hands of a dwarven master blacksmith, after which the priests imbue it with divine power for years. Even just holding it in his hand, Damien feels his fatigue disappear. Agnes begged the master and with great difficulty managed to get him. Since Damien joins this expedition, he should receive a reward. However, it is quite rare for her to simply lend the sacred sword to an outsider. Apparently, Agnes is extremely passionate when it comes to Damien. Margaret deliberately teases Agnes to anger her. In any case, although this is not a high-class item, it is still a thing of incredible value. Agnes once again thanked our hero for responding to their request. But Damien doesn't need gratitude. He would like to hear more about the current situation. A few weeks ago, people started disappearing in the No-Free Mountains. The soldiers walked through the forest and tried to find the third missing person. Suddenly, their dog became very scared and pressed itself to the ground. The soldiers did not immediately understand why she behaved this way, but then we heard the man say how much pain he was in. Hearing the voice, They began to look out, trying to find its source, and then a huge monster came out from behind the trees towards them. They were frightened by what they saw. A monster, assembled from the bodies of animals and missing people, came out to them. This is how the estate's soldiers, who were searching for the missing farmers, were able to pinpoint the location of the dungeon. But our hero felt that something was wrong with this story. It was unthinkable that the puppeteer of corpses would allow his subjects to escape so easily, especially when he himself still hasn't even shown up and hasn't left a single trace of his presence. A fair point. The church also suspects that this could be a trap, but they still sent a punitive detachment. However, the church's actions are not entirely reckless. Assuming that the dungeon might be a trap, they gathered experienced fighters from 3 schools. With such powers, one could wipe out an entire kingdom, and Damien was called because of Agnes. Their master was against it at first, but then, since they joined at the last moment, 2 came out and he ordered the fighting power to be increased. Therefore, if our hero had not accepted this offer, Margaret would not have allowed Agnes to participate. Damien can't tell anyone, but he already knows how this punitive operation will end. In a past life, a large-scale punitive detachment was assembled, exactly like this one, and the result was its complete destruction. And from the last words of the paladin, who barely survived and died immediately after, the reason became known. He said that the enemy was among the punitive detachment. It only remains to find out which of them is the traitor. Their carriage arrived at the place where the paladins had set up camp. The punitive forces camp is quite well prepared. There are quite a few paladins here who look at least of low rank. The church was well prepared for this operation. Margaret asked Damien to follow her. They walked into the chamber where the paladins from the Order of the Furious Blizzard sat. It seems that Margaret is late not for the first time. She said that she needed to stop by somewhere. But next time he will definitely come on time, and it seems this excuse is not the first time. But the problem is Gomel's eternal irascibility. If he frowns like that all the time, wrinkles will appear on his forehead. Their exchange of barbs at some point almost escalated into a real quarrel, and also a measurement of the coolness of each of their orders. Damien noted that these 2 orders really have very bad relations. But their quarrel was interrupted by Sanus from the Order of Blinding Pain, a second-rank paladin of the church. She advised them to direct all their energy to tearing apart those dirty, dark magicians hiding in the dungeon. Margaret greeted her. They hadn't seen each other for a long time either. Sanus asked who the man was sitting at the table with them, pointing at our hero. He doesn't look like a paladin. Margaret introduced her to our hero. The other paladins had already heard of him, since he had executed an officer from Yulan, and also that he fought with 2 dark magicians at once. Margaret excitedly told them that Agnes had gone personally to recruit him, and she had thought her shy. Damien is not just some outside force. He has many merits to their order, so he was recognized as an ally. Gomel noted that it is indeed risky to involve untested external forces in such an important operation. But Agnes defended this decision. Some paladins believe that the stranger may have other intentions, since dark mages have already planted a spy within the order. This Gomel is quite cautious, but Margaret asked him to watch his language and not cross the line. However, Sanus supported this idea, saying that it seemed dangerous. Gomel asked Damien's permission to ask a question. The paladins joined this punitive detachment to execute heretics and prove the greatness of the god. Therefore, he is interested in what reason brought the nobleman here. Our hero was about to give his answer, but a paladin burst into the room with an urgent message. Scouts on the mountainside encountered a flesh golem. Many faces on this ugly body are screaming for help, for pain, for mom. It is unclear how such a terrifying creature can exist. Suddenly, the monster's behavior changed to anger, after which it began to randomly attack the paladins. Margaret caught her comrade, who did not have time to dodge the powerful blow. The guy lost consciousness in her arms. The monster emitted gases from every crack in its body. All the greenery around immediately withered. The paladins protected their bodies with divine power from this potent poison. They'd better focus on defense until the attack is over. But Damien surprised everyone again. He does not let this poison into his body with the help of aura. And while the others were focused on defense, our hero approached the golem quite close. The many heads on the ugly body began to scream, begging them to go away. And the largest mouth began an attack, from which our hero also defended himself with an aura. After this, the monster decided to attack with her fists, but Damien stopped this attack with his holy sword. He told Gomel the reason for his arrival, which he so wanted to hear. Agita, that damn dark mage, cursed his domain and tried to kill his entire family. After everything I've been through at his hands, killing one of them won't be enough for Damien. That's why he won't stop until he kills every one of these creatures. This answer shocked Gomel, but he was no less shocked by Damien's strength. At the same time, the enemy is trying to find out from one of his own, Dylant, why he gave away the location. After all, only the 3 of them remained from Yulan, and the paladins are now building a perimeter outside. But there is a man who has ordered the kingdom to be shaken, so Dylant decided to start by destroying the church's fighting power. Their mysterious leader hasn't appeared for a long time, but Dylant won't let anyone insult him. Perhaps this mysterious leader would even like it if he created a golem using the flesh of a dark mage. Kite attacked them from behind and grabbed them by the heads. Dylant ordered him to take them to the sewing room. He would immediately carry out the procedure. Kite listens only to him. He created a loyal subordinate for himself, who carries out all orders without question. This time, Dylent will create a true masterpiece that will definitely satisfy his enigmatic leader. And if it is the corpse of a paladin, he will surely give them an answer again. Sitting in this cave, he controls the golem, which is now fighting the paladins. Then the puppeteer saw that there was someone else besides the paladins. He saw Damien find the core with one blow and pierce the golem. Dylent can't believe that someone who isn't even a paladin could so easily break through the trials he had prepared. Then the puppeteer decided that our hero would be the ideal ingredient for the next creation. He asked his mysterious patron to wait until he caught the perfect ingredient and used it for his purposes. This will be his greatest masterpiece. It seems like this is how the Death Knight appeared last time. However, now fate can change, because our hero has a power that he did not have before. The next day, a squad of paladins approached the cave. If they want this punitive operation to be successful, everyone must understand their roles and responsibilities. The first to go will be a furious blizzard under the command of Gomel. The flaming ones will cover the rear from sudden attacks. And in the center, the blinding pain squad will use its powers to support both the front and rear as they advance. This structure allows for the most effective use of the various powers that each order possesses. Agnes was upset that they were in the rear. She would have liked to be on the front lines and cleanse the world of these heretics. But Dionisio promised to sort out the details and open the way, and the flaming ones should save their strength for the decisive battle. He told Damien that his performance yesterday was really impressive, although he himself is not at that level yet. But a stranger always remains a stranger, so Dionisio will keep a close eye on our hero. Agnes advised him to stop talking nonsense and return to his position. Before they catch the puppeteer with a corpse, it would be fun for Damien to find the traitor inside the church first. And since that was the case, he called Agnes to follow him to catch the puppeteer of the corpses. At the same time, find out the reason for Agnes's boundless hatred. In the cave, they came across many mediocre dolls made from the flesh of corpses. The Order of the Furious Blizzard, which goes ahead, cuts them down, clearing the way for the rest. Gomel and Dionisio are at the very top. Before doing so, freezing them with ice magic. No matter how many times Damien saw it, this power still fascinates him. Even he himself is not able to reproduce this ability. The power of the church. Depending on the order, the power may have a different nature. In the past, he fought fiercely against the 5 saints who were at the peak. The Furious Blizzard, one of the strongest orders. Their only flaw is their excessive pride. And yet these paladins are a little overacting, since they remember Damien's performance yesterday and are wary of him. And yet our hero kills, so clearly showing mercy to a creature that emerged from the dirty hands of heretics. As expected from the Disciple of Light, who seemed the most fanatical of the 5 saints, the abnormal one admires Damien's hatred. She even tried to invite him to her order. They are always glad to see such sacred and strong people. Our hero doesn't understand how many more times he will have to repeat this scenario when facing the paladins. Sanus also mentioned that, as a paladin of their order, he would become an eternal servant of God. And besides, this will solve his problem with the lack of mana. This part is definitely interesting. Paladins can gain divine power depending on their faith. Each time they cleanse the world of filthy heretics, the god grants them divine power. But Damien still refused. The lack of mana would be corrected when he completed the mana cultivation techniques and completely absorbed the spirit heart. He would never become a church dog for such a reason. Sanus, he also wove a story about wandering the world and following in the footsteps of God. Margaret pointed out to Agnes that at this rate they could lose Damien. Sanus went further. Our hero really makes her task difficult. It's hard to resist him. She wasn't used to not getting what she wanted, and she suggested to Damien that they spend some time together. Our hero immediately took out his sword and attacked Sanus. Margaret and Agnes were very surprised, not understanding what was happening. However, Sanus herself remained completely fine. Our hero destroyed the doll behind her back, which can hide its body. The wound is deep, but the doll is not defeated. She has strong armor, so our hero suggested that we deal with it ourselves. However, Sanus took out the Bible and went towards the monster. She asked our hero not to get underfoot. Damien is amazed, has enough power to neutralize a high-ranking flesh golem with a single book. The enemy is attacking from the rear. Margaret will deal with it, and Sanus must return to her position. It's a shame, but Sanus promised Damien that they would definitely find time next time. Agnes, of course, sees it a little differently. She thinks that Sanus is luring our hero to lectures on the Bible, and he experiences a kind of jealousy, which made her feel sad and depressed, or maybe even angry, and she will take this anger out on the monsters. Morgana suggested leaving everything to her to give her time to calm down. Agnes went out alone against a bunch of huge monsters, but she was the only student of the Azure Flame. If among the 5 saints, light was the most annoying enemy, that Azure Flame is by far the strongest. Agnes effortlessly destroyed the monsters one after another. I took out all my negative emotions on them. After that, it became quiet around. So far, no one is attacking anymore. But they came across a fork in the road. It would be too inefficient for the whole crowd to go there one by one. The leaders of the 2 orders began a meeting about whether it would be a good idea to split into squads. Agnes decided to go get a bite to eat while she had the chance. But Dionisio had already prepared food for her. He handed her the food with a smile. But he looked at our hero as if he was doing him a favor. But he also needed to eat. There was a big battle ahead, so Agnes asked Damien to eat well. After all, they came all this way to kill the puppeteer of corpses. Our hero is still curious why she is so fixated on him. But it is very tactless to ask someone so easily about the past. But since Damien came here at her request, she will tell. Before this, she had already told the story of the village that had been devastated by the puppeteer in the past. Agnes lived in that village and she survived then. Then, her older brother, the paladin, returned home on leave. Every time her brother came, Agnes would stay up all night listening to his stories about the service in the Holy Church. But that day, she couldn't listen to them. The village was attacked by hordes of walking zombies. Her brother asked her to hide and not go out under any circumstances. He asked me not to go out until someone opened the door, and also not to make any sounds. This was the last time Agnes saw him. When she was rescued by a patrol from the Holy Church, the bodies of the villagers and the undead had already been burned. Through the Holy Church, she learned that the culprit of what happened that day was the puppeteer. That's why she's looking for him, and that's why she became a paladin. While Agnes was telling her story, the meeting about further actions also ended. They had to decide whether to check the 5 passages one by one or split the punitive detachment and enter at once. In the end, they came to the conclusion that it was better to split up and enter at once. Gomel wanted them to go together, but Margaret and Sanus were against it, so the meeting dragged on. This guy has always been overly cautious, which Margaret thinks is his problem. Our hero noticed that they seem to have known each other for a long time. Gomel ordered all units to gather. From this moment on, the punitive detachment is divided into 5 teams and goes inside. Each squad breaks through at maximum speed and then unites with those who fall behind. Just as Gomel was about to say that today would be Yulin's last day, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them collapsed from the explosion, and the entire punitive detachment fell into a huge hole. This hole is boundless and very deep. The sudden explosion turned into a storm, and now everyone was scattered. Paladins are as resilient as cockroaches. They'll probably land on their own without any problems. More importantly, it looks like the puppeteer actually dug through this entire mountain to trap the paladins here. He really did prepare a grand tomb for Damien. Finally, they reached the bottom of the pit. Our hero fell in the same place with Dionisio. That's why Damien calls them cockroaches. They are treated with divine power. Dionisio himself doesn't seem to be particularly happy that, out of all the possible options, he ended up with our heroes. Damien didn't even think about persuading him. If he didn't want to, let him go his own way. Then Dionisio jumped up and ran towards our hero. But he didn't think anything bad. He just killed the monster hiding nearby. Damien left him alone because he was curious about what he would do, but he didn't expect to be protected. Dionisio still hates our hero, but if he dies, Agnes will be sad. Hearing this, Damien assumed that he liked Lady Agnes. Dionisio even reminds me of Abel in some ways. That's why our hero, despite everything, feels sympathy for him. At first, they thought they were being attacked by a man. But upon closer inspection, we realized that this was the work of a corpse puppeteer. This guy had a habit of making golems out of flesh. The more human-like they were, the more effort he put into them. He called these humanoid golems his greatest masterpiece. However, according to Dionisio, this is the most disgusting addiction from which this world must be cleansed. He pounced on the enemy to do it by force, but suddenly his divine power simply dissipated. This monster turned out to be stronger than the paladin. With just one blow, he sent Dionisio flying. The paladin could never understand what happened to his divine power, and Damien was a little surprised. Our hero took out his sword and walked forward. He had already seen something like this in his first life. It turns out that the puppeteer of the corpses already knew about this. A magical artifact located in the body of a humanoid golem. Damien knows very well who made it, which fuels his hatred. He cut the monster into small pieces, and he tore this artifact from his flesh. What he saw shocked Dionisio. Our hero so easily defeated the monster he couldn't. In addition, Damien's aura is terrifying and evokes fear. Our hero threw the artifact to the paladin and asked him to take it for study by the church. This will explain why their divine power stopped working. In a past life, the church found a way to resist too late and suffered much greater losses. But now, since Damien acted first, they would find a solution, an excellent chance to annoy Dorgo. Dionisio suddenly became very polite. He felt that it was necessary. The enemy seems to have hollowed out the insides of the mountain, so the place they hit must be gigantic. After wandering around for some time, they finally found one of their own. Sanus is glad to see them safe and sound. However, what Damien expected happened, but not what Dionisio expected. Sanus squeezes Gomel's neck in his hands, but acts as if nothing had happened. She then revealed that Sir Gomel had ambushed their scattered team members. But Dionisio is very confused. He cannot believe in betrayal. He thinks it's all a misunderstanding. Sanus tried to convince him that she herself could not believe it. But it was true. She even offered to arrest them and hold a trial if they insist. However, 2 second-rank paladins, close to the middle class, clashed in battle. But there is not a single trace of battle around. And Sanus itself is too clean compared to Gomel. Then the girl realized that Damien didn't buy her chatter, and confessed. Dionisio didn't immediately understand what she was talking about. However, Sanus showed him what it meant. She hit Gomel just like she hit him right now. She believes that all paladins are weak, yet they still call themselves the representative body of the church. Only blinding pain can be true representatives. The church has become too lenient in interrogating heretics. They deserve only immediate execution. The Order of Blinding Pain wishes to restore the original order and return the church to its old ways. Most of the punitive detachment died in the dungeon. This means that their order, whose core remains, will naturally become the center of the church. All this is complete nonsense, because in his past life, even that grand betrayal ended in complete destruction. The paladins, endowed with power, were defeated with one blow. Having disposed of the pawns with a wave of destruction, our hero pierced Sanus's neck with the death blade. He saw it clearly, but for some reason his sword missed. Sanus must have used some kind of ability. And after successfully dodging, she immediately attacked Damien with destructive force. She has a defense that can block the death blade and a deadly attack. The power of blinding pain, their power of amplification, and it is not just physical strength. They can increase the density of an object or the sharpness of a blade too. Any concept can be enhanced. And the higher the level, the more buffs can be applied, and the more times this ability can be used. Sanus has advanced far. She can make up to 30 enhancements. Damien knows, after all, he has already fought Light, one of the 5 great saints. He then crushed thousands of undead creatures using only his evil gravity. Sanus heard that our hero is able to reflect the approaching magic, but now he only dodges. Her attacks are too predictable, and her all-encompassing gaze consumes mana proportionally to the attack power. At Damien's current level, this is a bit much, because Sanus's attacks are very powerful and expensive. Then she said that Damien's evasions had come to an end. Our hero decided that he would have to take a little risk. He decided to apply the Spirit Heart now. The amount of mana in his body increased many times over. Sanus didn't understand what he had done, but she decided that she needed to end it before it became dangerous. However, her series of intensified attacks did not produce any results. Our hero used his all-encompassing gaze every time and diverted her attacks. Besides, he himself gave her a good punch. Dionysios and Gomal are amazed by such power. But since our hero refuses to be cut, Sanus decided to try something a little rougher. Although now she is unlikely to be able to respond with anything worthy. Meanwhile, Agnes and Margaret landed in another part of the pit. Most of the rank-and-file paladins were killed, and something about that didn't feel right. The two of them were very unlucky, because they fell right on top of the corpse puppeteer. Although he's not particularly interested in these girls, he would like Damien to fall here. Since no one saw the puppeteer of the corpses, they did not immediately understand who was in front of them. But this even slightly offended the enemy. They came here to kill him. He greeted his materials and introduced himself.